Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is now in Japan on his trip to Asia. He met with Japanese Emperor Naruhito and is set to meet Japan's newly installed prime minister. The big focus is set for later this week. Trump is expected to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping in South Korea. The Trump administration says it's reached a framework for trade issues with China. The framework is supposed to lead to trade agreements. Separately, China's foreign minister talked with Secretary of State Marco Rubio today. NPR's Emily Fang reports.
China's Wang Yi is the country's top diplomat, and he praised both President Trump and China's leader Xi Jinping as world-class leaders on the call. The foreign minister also urged the U.S. and China to build on a trade consensus that negotiating teams said they reached in Malaysia over the weekend. That consensus could broadly halt an additional 100% tariff that Trump has threatened on Chinese goods and stave off a punishing export control regime that China's been developing on rare earth products that the U.S. cannot refine itself. But that consensus has not been formalized, and it now hangs in the balance during a highly anticipated Xi-Trump meeting this week, the first between the two leaders since Trump started his second presidential term. Emily Fang, NPR News.
The federal government shutdown is nearly a month old. A major federal government employees union is calling on Republicans and Democrats today to pass a clean stopgap spending bill and reopen the government. Small business administrator Kelly Loeffler says the shutdown hurts all Americans.
The pain is the point. Every single day of the shutdown has stopped 320 local businesses every single day from accessing $170 million in SBA loans for hiring and for expansion.
Congressional Democrats say congressional Republicans need to restore the significant cuts to federal health care programs before they agree to a spending bill. Hurricane Melissa is forecast to hit Jamaica as a dangerous Category 5 storm. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports this is the first time a storm of this magnitude has struck the island head-on.
Category 5 hurricanes have extremely powerful winds, strong enough to knock down homes that are made of wood and rip off most roofs. And Hurricane Melissa is also moving extremely slowly, which means it will linger over land, dumping huge amounts of rain. The storm is expected to bring multiple feet of rain to some parts of Jamaica. That's particularly dangerous because the island has hills and mountains. When a large amount of rain falls in such an area, it can cause deadly flash flooding because the water picks up speed as it flows downhill. Climate change makes large, rainy hurricanes like Melissa more likely. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow is up more than 200 points, or about 0.5%. The Nasdaq is up about 350 points, or 1.5%. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. U.S. Representative Jim McGovern has proposed a bill that would increase federal reimbursement rates for free and reduced school meals. The Telegram and Gazette reports that it's an effort to offset costs of labor and nutritious foods in public schools. McGovern says the bill is necessary as Donald Trump's economy has sent food prices through the roof. And it was on this date, October 27th, 1966, 59 years ago, that It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown first aired on TV.
Can I have an extra piece of candy for my stupid brother? He couldn't come with us because he's sitting in a pumpkin patch, waiting for the great pumpkin.
It's the Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown follows the children of the Peanuts comics as they celebrate Halloween, while Linus forgoes celebrations to wait in a pumpkin patch for the mythical Great Pumpkin. Meanwhile, all the other kids are out trick-or-treating.
Trick or treat! Gee, I got a candy bar. Boy, I got 3 cookies. Hey, I got a package of gum. I got a rock.
The program was incredibly successful, watched by 49% of American television viewers in its debut broadcast. It aired on broadcast TV every year from its debut until 2020, when it became an Apple TV Plus exclusive. Clouding up this afternoon, high in the low 50s. We are at 50 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. Welfare Foundation, committed to advancing transformative youth and criminal justice reforms.
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Unfortunately, we'll be not back at the library tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll keep you posted on what's happening there. But we want to announce that the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, will be with us November 4th at 11 o'clock. We hope we're at the library by then. And Yo-Yo Ma, the extraordinary cellist, is not only going to be with us, he's going to perform November 19th. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined in studio on the New York mayoral race by the former mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio. Hello, Jim.
Who, by the way, went to Cambridge and Latin.
Local
High school.
guy.
Not quite sure why.
He's like 6'7" or something, isn't he?
No, I think he's
was
like
he a basketball star at Cambridge Fringe and Latin?
Was I a basketball star?
No, you were not, because no one could believe that anyone so big could be so bad. That's the story.
Okay. So here's the deal. We're starting the show with a conversation about knowing when it's time to step aside, when to read the room and realize that nobody actually wants you to do the thing you keep saying you're going to do or keep doing. Here is a recent example. It's Kamala Harris in a BBC interview, and I think they're talking about her step-grandchildren. Here they are.
When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you? Possibly. Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But you say in your book, I'm not done.
That is correct. I am not done.
Okay, well, that's one example. Here is another one. This is Steve Bannon. You may have heard of him, talking to The Economist.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president in 28. And people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
By the way, if you haven't done the math, in 2028, Donald Trump will be 82 years old. And who else is 82? Joe Biden, who spoke yesterday at the Edward M. Kennedy Center for the, I think, Study of the Senate. They gave him an award, and we know about staying too long at the fair. By the way, it's not just limited to politics. On the other public radio station, one of the great shows ever, Car Talk, stayed on the air for years after Tom Magliosi, one half of Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers, had died.
Well, Jim, that's my plan. We hadn't told you.
Which half? Okay, thank you very much. And well, speaking of that, by the way, there's some people who think that some talk show hosts who are not dead.
That's right.
Should give it up.
Should step aside. Okay. Step aside. Give room for the youngins.
And also, we had Seth Moulton on a week ago today, who was running against Ed Markey, and he basically said I'm running against him because he's been there too long. So, should age restrictions exist in politics? And why is it? Forget just politics. Why is it so hard to know when to bow out? Who do you think has stayed too long at the fair, so to speak? Well, you know when it's time to hang them up, as they say. The number's 877-301-8970. Give a couple examples of people who you think have stayed too long at the fair, as that saying goes.
Well, I always think of people, of fighters that stay too long at the fair. Like Muhammad Ali, who was one of the greatest fighters of all time, and he developed Parkinson's disease, and which I think had to do with all his getting hit in the head so many times. He stayed too long. Obviously Biden stayed much too long. If Trump tries to go again, he'll stay too long. We have this race now in Ed Markey, who would be 86 at the end of his second term. That's one of Seth Moulton's, as you said, big points.
Well, except let me interrupt and say that. When I used to talk about age limits in politics, what would you always say to me on the radio? Should Ted Kennedy resign?
That's right.
And my answer was always no, he shouldn't, because he's the single best United States senator. I'll give you a good political example.
Elizabeth Warren is not young either.
She's 74 or 76. Jacinda Ardern. Where does she live now, by the way?
She should move out of New Zealand.
She lives in Cambridge, actually.
She does?
She does, yeah. She's, I think, at the Kennedy School.
How come we haven't had her on the show?
We've tried, actually, and we've failed.
She
was the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who stepped down at 42 years old, wildly popular, saying, quote, she no longer had anything left in the tank. She was suffering from burnout.
And also, she had young children. I think you see more women in business that aren't necessarily famous, but they're women that are in business. We used to call them in Brookline the MBAs turned PTAs, women who've done really well and quit because they didn't want to work 70 hours a week.
But let me mention somebody else who has very, very young child who is not hanging up. Bill Belichick has a very young, I'm sorry, it's not his child. I'm sorry. It's his girlfriend. So there are a ton of examples in sports, in business, in politics, and media where people stay to. You know another example, by the way, brilliant. Even though I have real problem with all the stuff he said about trans people, Dave Chappelle quit his, I think it was the TV show, and left like $50 million on the table, even though obviously he continued in another kind of iteration. 877-301-8970. Who do you think has stayed too long at the fair? It doesn't have to be limited to politics and any sort of public life kind of thing.
Now, as long as you mentioned Bill Belichick, the obvious person that we were, every time he threw an interception, we were talking about Tom Brady for the time he was like 36 on, saying, oh, he's going to quit now. He's getting too old. And he seemed to defy the odds.
Yeah, some do.
And do really well for a really long time. But that's really unusual, I think, in sports. You talked about that guy, Andrew Luck, that not many people may have heard of. They're not big football fans.
Huge.
But he was a big quarterback
star.
Yeah, quarterback star. And he left because he was sick of the injuries.
Yeah, he's now at Stanford, which I think was his alma mater, and your alma mater. I think he's the athletic director or something like that. He said he just couldn't take the wear and tear on his body, and he had concussions. And he was considered to be the next number one quarterback. Was pretty great as it was. I think Indianapolis, I'm not sure. And he hung it up. But so in addition to people who you think have stayed too long, why do you think they can't get, like Chuck Grassley?
Chuck Grassley,
he's chair
he's
of the
87.
Is he chair of the Judiciary
I don't
Committee?
know.
I think he's from Iowa. He's 88. I think he's
88.
actually 88.
Oh my God.
He's a spry 88, though I should say. One of the best ones, by the way, somebody who obviously came back in another fashion, but gave up his show was Seinfeld. Seinfeld obviously was huge. Here's a little exchange between, by the way, one of the best videos, if you really want to have a good time, is the 10 worst moments of Larry King. Now, Larry King was a genius and started interviewed television.
He may have stayed too long at the fair.
He did, exactly. And here is... there was a great interview. It's the 10 worst Larry King moments. One of the moments when he has Sharon Tate's sister on, and Sharon Tate's sister, whose name I can't remember, said she had just spoken to Roman Polanski. And Larry King says, you just spoke to Roman Polanski? How could you talk to him? He killed your sister. And she says, no, he was married to my sister. He actually... Charles Manson killed my sister. In any case, here's a little back and forth between Larry King and Seinfeld in 2007.
Lasted how long?
9 years, 180 episodes.
You gave it up, right?
I did, sir.
They didn't cancel you. You canceled them.
You're not aware of this?
No, I'm asking you.
You think I got canceled? Are you under the impression that I got canceled?
Have I hurt you, Jerry?
I thought that was pretty well documented. Is this still CNN? I was the number one show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
That was the number one show on television, Larry. That was fabulous.
Yeah, that was a riot. Okay.
877-301-8970. And I don't know if I said this or just thought this. Beyond who you think stayed too long, what do you think it is that causes people to not be able to ever give it up?
Well, I think in politics it's power. Yeah. You have tremendous power. You get all those great free parking spaces and stuff like that, or free. You get a lot of free things.
Well, your guy, Chuck Schumer.
Oh, yeah. He definitely. I mean, I wouldn't mind it so much if he stayed off television because you think this is the guy that's leading the charge for the Democrats. Are you kidding me? Did you read Benjamin and Brighton, Jim?
Yeah, this is a good one. You should read this.
Jim stayed so long at the fair, they're thinking of converting him into an exhibit. Yeah, well, we've both been around a long time. We're still
I think I'm just hitting my prime, is what I would say. Let's go to Sarah in a car. Sarah, you're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Marjorie.
Hi.
Love you guys.
Thank
and
you.
May you live long and prosper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But if anything does happen to you, Jim, Marjorie, I think they have my number. Anyway.
Well, thanks for your endorsement there, Sarah. Appreciate it.
No, you'll be around. You'll be
sure
around.
I will,
You're going to get this.
Oh, we lost you. Sarah, you still there?
Here she is. She's back.
Okay, keep going. You're back. Go ahead.
Okay. So I do think ageism is real, but what I really wanted to ask you about is what about political columnists like the Maureen Dowds and the Peggy Noonans who've been going great guns forever? Like, they're public people and they're powerful, and I respect them and I enjoy them both just as I do you. Like, what's the difference?
Well, can I tell you something? I think I did tell the story a second ago. On the air about 15 years ago, obviously when Ted Kennedy was still alive, I did one of mine. There should be a 70-year-old retirement age for politicians. And then Marjorie immediately said to me, so Ted Kennedy should retire? And I said, no. So I guess the answer, because I feel the same way you do about Peggy Noonan and Maureen Dowd, is maybe there should be guidelines, but maybe not mandates, I guess, which is mealy-mouthed, I know.
But you must have noticed both of them work less now. I mean, they're not shoving those columns out 2 and 3
Well, Dowd's every
week.
Sunday, at least.
Well, I think she was more than that.
Oh, she was?
When
Okay.
she used to write. And she's writing about certain things. So I think that they kind of morphed their job. I mean, how often do you see Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal? Not as much as you used to, right? Am I wrong? I think I'm right.
No, I think you're right, Marjorie. They're both weekly, but yeah, maybe we all need to work less.
Well,
Maybe that's the
Sarah,
answer.
speaking of that, I mean, we'll be honest, since you were so honest with us, at least 2 days a week, Marjorie and I don't even know where we are, much less what we're doing. So it depends. It's 3 days a week, we're okay. Sarah, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Someone said Mitch McConnell. Did you see him fall down again the other day?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Our texters are saying that we're wrong, that Chuck Grassley is actually 92.
He is? Can someone look that up for us? Senator Grassley. I mean, by the way, he as I say, he's really, even if he's 92, he's a really spry 92. So and didn't he just win? He is 92. We were wrong.
He's 92.
Yeah, well, he just acts like he's only 88.
Definitely.
That's the difference.
Supposedly the story is he's trying to give the seat to his son, but God, his son has probably got to be 70 by now, right?
And by the way, proof that he can't just have an age limit. Didn't Strom Thurmond, when he was 100, marry a 30-year-old
I think he
or
did.
something?
He was very spry as well.
You know what? They both enjoyed soup, and they. It's a line from a movie that you should go see.
Yeah, but some people, the late night people. I was thinking of David Letterman. He retired. I mean, his ratings were going down, but he retired.
No, I don't think he retired because of the ratings. I think.
No, I think he'd had enough.
Well, the most famous Tonight Show host ever, which was ages ago, Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson
retired,
and not only did he retire, but he retired and disappeared.
Well, he never. But the thing about Johnny Carson,
I thought that was very interesting,
is he almost never had a public presence. He was really a
You know what's weird?
presence.
He had at least 3 wives, maybe 4.
All named the same thing.
Joanna.
Yeah, Joanna.
How odd is that?
Yeah.
That's not that common of a name,
You think
is
it
it?
is?
And maybe he only name was Joanne or Joanna.
You know who also retired? This is a long time ago, really early when she was a superstar. You spent an hour with her when you were hosting on
Audrey
NBCN
Hepburn.
for a week.
Audrey
Yeah,
Hepburn. Oh, there's Howard Stern. He talks about retiring every day.
But he's not retiring. He's in his young 70s, and it was all a scam, that whole thing that he was retiring. The best example we've come up with so far is Jacinda Ardern. I mean, brilliant, popular, dealt with some crises there, incredibly in New Zealand, wonderfully, and she decided at 42, family and burnout were the things she had to deal with. Mark in Rhode Island, you are next on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey there. Hey, both of you. Yeah. So I'd like to suggest Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan totally should retire. It's embarrassing to see these great voices continue to perform.
Well, can I tell you something? Willie Nelson is the chair of the board. I'll let you continue, but don't stay. Give me a second. Willie Nelson is chair of the board of Farm Aid, which is an incredibly important organization for small family farmers. And I was there as recently as maybe 3-4 years ago, and he was like 90, and he was spectacular. So I don't know about Dylan.
Bob Dylan
I couldn't
is not
understand Dylan for
spectacular.
decades. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
He had to perform sitting down. I think I saw that also. And
Okay.
yeah, I love him. And let him do the Farm Aid, but give it up. The other thing I just say is I hope the two of you never think about retiring. You're both just fabulous. Okay?
Well, thank you. Jim is doing the show from a prone position today.
I am. I am. Mark, thank you. From a retirement home, actually. Mark, that was a very nice call. Thank you for being so kind.
How about the woman who was the congresswoman from Texas that she hadn't been voting?
Oh, she was in a nursing home.
She was in a
nursing home. Well, it's
suffering
not funny.
from severe dementia.
Did you read the story about Eleanor Holmes Norton, the delegate from D.C.?
That's terrible.
I mean, it's sad, actually. And she's got, they say, dementia. And her staff is just, and I'm not, by the way, Biden was not in that state. But, I mean, the staff, circling the wagons or whatever that expression is around him. So, in any case, by the way, one of our colleagues typed Michael Jordan retired third. He did. But he came back and then he retired again 5 years later. Then he came back and retired again So he should have stayed gone the first time, it seems to me.
One of our texters says, member of Congress stay in power because they make so much money through insider trading. That's Peter on the North Shore.
Yeah, well, that may be true.
There is a lot of insider trading going on. Scott Brown, God love him, that was his big issue, to get rid of insider trading when he got to the Senate. And he was absolutely right, but it did not happen.
He's running he's running in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Again, in the same race for Sununu. One of the Sununu brother announced. By the way, we're going to be doing, this is an announcement, we're going to hold it, but Jamie just said we had an obligation to be transparent. Now, we'll be broadcasting not from the library next week, but live from the villages in Florida.
That's right.
If you don't know what it is, Google it.
That's the place they have all the sexually transmitted diseases.
Amongst old people.
And drive around in golf carts all the time.
Exactly.
By the way, here's a good point.
Yeah.
When you are described as spry, it's time to retire.
I think that's probably true. Let's go to Valerie in Amherst. Hi, Valerie.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. How are you all?
And to you, great.
Good. So in my thoughts are, I think all politicians are very selfish if they stay in office longer than they need to. When they've made enough money, I think they should let the new people come along. I also feel like everybody should have a mental acuity test.
Amen.
For something where you're making decisions for a lot of people, or even for safety issue, whatever, in any job, you should have a mental acuity test to make sure you are capable of understanding. And then Congress people, they should be having a course on balancing budgets. So that's pretty much what I feel like. And I know that it's very fun to spend other people's money. I used to be a marketing manager.
Yeah.
And it was great to just buy, and people would feel great that you were showing up in that way. So, that's my thought.
Valerie, thanks. We appreciate your perspective.
Here's a good one. I'm sorry, you go ahead. Makes a great point and say, by the time it's time to go, you can no longer tell it's time to go.
No, that's unfortunately.
Because you can't really tell the time.
Talking about Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein.
Yes.
Here's an interesting anonymous thought. How has Kamala Harris stayed too long at the fair? She's 61, has been senator, vice president for 4 years now, the shortest candidacy for president ever, 107 days, I think. Why do you think she's not an appropriate candidate? I didn't mean, I think I speak for Marjorie, it's not age. It's not always age, by the way, at all. It's just she had her crack. And it's unfortunate there was only 107 days. And I know a lot of people disagree with me and Marjorie, but I think they need a new face. So it's not as much an anti-Harris thing as much as they got to turn the page. At least we think so.
I think she was a tough candidate. I mean, obviously she had racism going against her. She had sexism going against her. But I don't think she was not, shouldn't have it. In a way, I think you got to have it to become the president.
Carla from Seattle says, how about Andrew Cuomo? Well, Andrew Cuomo, I don't know about staying too long at the fair. He's a sexual deviant. I mean, he's a sexual harasser and a sexual abuser. So I think if he was 30, he is unqualified to hold public office. Let's go to Jack in a car. Hi, Jack. What's up?
Jim, Marjorie, I will say when Trump got in for the second time, I was at work when I found out, and I was like, all right, as long as I have Jim and Marjorie to keep me going, that's fine. He can come back in, but if I lose them, I've been listening to you guys for years, so please don't go off the air as long as Trump's in office. And Jim, we need you alive too, just like Sarah said.
Yeah, well, my plan, I should say, this is also something I wanted to announce. My plan is to stay alive, actually. I wasn't going to announce this till next week, but that is my plan, at least for the foreseeable future.
We could all be dead while Trump's still in office. I mean, maybe third term, fourth term, maybe he'll just stay there forever.
But go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? But speaking of Sarah, your first caller, I actually had this thought when you guys were talking to her, which is that I'm sure you guys are obviously familiar that with like federal judges, not necessarily on the Supreme Court, but on the district and circuit courts of appeals, they can take senior status, which is kind of like a way of kind of fluffing them.
It's a great
kind
point.
Of getting them out of the way for someone new to go in. You know, and it's kind of like they still give them the procedure. I think they still get their office. They can still get some cases, which, you know, like, again, some of those people need to go. I'm surprised that we don't just even try that. Well, we'll kind of fluff their feather, but still get a new person in. I don't know how that would work for politicians because I'm honestly not really even sure how it works for judges, but I try anything to get some of these people out there.
Well, that judge thing is a wonderful point you make. It is
judges.
70, but Jack's also right. Yeah. They can stay. I think it's obviously a voluntary thing.
And a lot of them do go in and
status.
do work as senior status judges, but I think 70 is too young. I think they should be 75 now for judges. I mean, I think people don't generally start losing it until older.
Yeah, I understand that. But again, it gets there's always an exception to the rule. And the question is, well, you know who also stayed too long? One of the most revered justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And not because of her mental acuity, but because obviously look what happened when she stayed and Trump got to appoint the replacement.
I think, says the texter, the ability to not let go and retire is more of a symptom of the baby boomer generation. That's us, Jim. I can't see Gen X or millennials later down the line hanging on. Their priorities are different. But that's a good point. But I think a lot of the reason people keep working is they need the money. You know, they need the money, and they can't with everything being so expensive.
Most politicians don't need
not the
money.
Politicians, but regular people that stay on too long.
Well, if you got to work because you need the money, then I don't think you can't fault them, can you?
No. But I think that's one of the reasons. It's the same reason as baby boomers don't give up their houses. They can't afford to. They can't afford to move anyplace else, so they're stuck in their 5-bedroom house forever.
No, the Senator Grassley said when he's 98, he's considering giving up his house, not his seat, but he's thinking of moving to smaller quarters.
Yeah, to smaller quarters.
Mrs. Grassley, who's 104. No, she's not. She's very.
We're talking about people staying too long at the fair. We're mostly talking about politicians, but we can talk about anybody: actors, radio talk show hosts, comedians. Musicians. Should Mick Jagger still be bouncing around in his 80s?
Well, we went to the Rolling Stone show. Jagger was great. How about Keith Richards?
Keith
was
Richards
he great?
Couldn't really move. He was immobilized. But Mick Jagger danced for 2 hours. I thought, wow, that guy, I don't know what he's taken. Anyway, you're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're talking about when is it time to step down and why is it so hard for so many to do it? 877-301-8970.
Greenland is dotted with ghost towns. They were abandoned in the mid-20th century as part of a government effort to consolidate a sparse population.
Some of them were shut down more forcibly than others.
But not everyone left for good. We'll hear that story and the top global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, believing breakthrough ocean science starts with curiosity. You can explore the hidden wonders of our ocean planet at whoi.edu.
And Katherine Denny presenting Connected the Musical, an original story about finding truth in a changing world. Running October 24th through November 2nd in Westford, Massachusetts. Tickets available at nashobaplayers.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Not at the library tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll let you know. They're making some changes to the studio. We'll explain. If you're just tuning in, we're taking your calls about how do you know when it's time to go? We're prompted by the fact that there's some people, not always based on age, but you just sort of feel it's time. You've had your chance. Let others do it. It's hard to know when to step away, but should some people just be better at taking that hint? 877-301-8970 is the number. You know what's another example?
What?
Stepping away from driving. One of our former crusades that went absolutely nowhere, this is Craig in Coolidge Corner reminding us, can't believe you two have mentioned this moldy chestnut, retaking the driver's test after a certain age. You passed the driver's test in Massachusetts at 16.
That's it.
You could be 106,
Yeah.
and some people are, by the way, very few, 96, and still be driving without a road test, and that's ridiculous. So that's a variation on a theme.
People always mention in this context Bernie Sanders, who sounds, I don't know what his
like a Ted Kennedy
health
example.
is great. Maybe he's got arthritis or something. I have no idea. But he
was great at that town hall last week.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's still totally with it.
But would it be better, I guess, this is what you used to say to me all the time, I can't believe you're saying it. Even if you think Ted Kennedy's the greatest senator ever, would it be better in total if there was a cutoff age, even if you lost some people?
I think there should be term limits.
You should.
Never mind cutoff age. I think term limits, 12 years is enough. 2 terms and
2 Senate terms.
Yes, and leave. Dano and Dudley, I plan on working my full-time job until the day I die. Then I'll only have to work part-time.
That's a good point. Brad in San Francisco. Hi, Brad.
Hi. I just wanted to agree with you both that I don't think Kamala Harris should run again as a Californian. I can say that because
why not?
I don't think they should have anybody as the presidential candidate from California.
Oh,
it's just too easy to trash the state, to show pictures of L.A. and San Francisco's homeless people. It's just too easy to give them that softball.
Yeah, so that
yours
takes
isn't
care of
about
Gavin Newsom.
Right, it isn't about that. You don't think of California, even if she was a first timer, would be the right one.
It's hard to get anybody to think of a Californian as a kind of supporter of the working class.
Yeah,
we're the high tech, tech bro, billionaire state. We're not the working class state. Now, I do like some of the stuff Gavin's doing, and as you know, the attack dog is the vice presidential candidate. So
right.
I think Gavin would make a great VP, and then you could argue with him, look, you're young enough. If you do a good job as VP when the president's done 2 terms, you can run then.
Hey, Brad, we appreciate your call. Thank you so much for having that discussion. Now, it's interesting. Harris said it's possible, and as you said, Newsom, in a piece was Drudge, I don't know what it linked to, said he's contemplating announcing, actually.
Yeah, well, he's been very vocal.
Brad has a point, though.
Brad has a point. The nuts, everybody, crazy Californians, the big lefty Californians, blah, blah, blah.
You're not going to say your Andy Bashir thing about whom you know almost nothing?
I don't. I know he's from Kentucky and he's a Democrat. He's done very well. But, what was the previous caller's name? Was it John?
Brad from San Francisco.
Brad knows better than I do because he is from there. But California is a huge state. There's a lot of conservatives in the middle of the state. I mean, it's like the coast.
Yeah, but it's a totally blue state now. There are obviously some congressional seats, even though if Newsom has his way, they're going to be fewer. Have you seen that battle, by the way? The change is Newsom against, what's his face? Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Schwarzenegger, who's pretty much particularly on climate change, taking progressive positions for a Republican, is against the change that would allow for them to do the redistricting.
Riley from Worcester just texted to say, Mick Jagger has a great granddaughter older than his youngest daughter. Maybe it's time to retire in another department than just music.
No, but by the way, it is really true. We saw them at Gillette. A friend was kind enough to take us.
Yeah.
And he was spectacular.
And he went down that runway. He was going back and forth. He was like skipping back and forth down the runway for 2 hours.
Yeah, but speaking of that, you know why I did it? Our friend who knows the guy who I guess runs Gillette, said that one of the demands, all the celebrities say, I need this kind of fruit, this kind of drink, whatever. He demands a full trailer of workout equipment, which is what he does almost all day long, and he looks unbelievable.
And I think
was he 80?
I don't know. I think he's over 80, and he still runs a lot, or at least he used to run like 5 miles a day or something.
82, John says
82 this year.
Lynn in Connecticut.
The drugs didn't do him in, Jim.
Lynn in Connecticut, or maybe they preserved him.
Maybe
Hi,
they
Lynn.
did.
Hi. You stole my thunder somewhat. I was going to say something about my hero, Bernie Sanders. He looked great at the rally last night, and he's passing the torch to AOC and to Mamdani, and I think he's doing it the right way.
By the way, that is actually really interesting. Not just endorsing them, and he obviously appeared with her at CNN and all those events around the country, but the Mamdani thing, maybe that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective, Lynn. Thank you for the call.
Thank you for the call. A lot of people are fans of Ed Markey here, even though he's going to be pretty old.
Well, what's the line? We're going to have him on, and his line is, it's not I'm paraphrasing, chronological age, it's the age of your ideas. And remember, he ran against Joe Kennedy, a pretty popular guy in Massachusetts, and he beat him pretty badly. What was the age differential there? 30 years or something? At least
like that.
35?
You have a lot of people talking about Mick Jagger's having lots of babies. He is? Yeah. He said, according to a texter, she said he had a baby boy in 2016, his 8th child, with then his 32-year-old girlfriend. Not as much of a spread. Well, I guess it is as much of a spread as Bill Belichick, 50 years. He also has a 9-year-old. So if they're not going to stop working, then at the very least, old men need to stop having babies. Will have to live most of their lives without their father. It's his choice, but it seems unethical and reckless.
Can we, just to make me happy, can we play the Larry King Seinfeld thing one more time before we take a break, because it's such a classic. Here's Larry King. I think it was in 2007 or something like that. Here it is.
Lasted how long?
9 years, 180 episodes.
You gave it up, right?
I did.
So they didn't cancel you. You canceled them.
You're not aware of this?
No, I'm asking you.
You think I got canceled? Are you under the impression that I got canceled?
Have I hurt you, Jerry?
I thought that was pretty well documented.
Is
this still CNN? I was the #1 show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
I'm sorry. That is one of the best sound bites
and you know
ever.
What? I'm not sure Larry did know who exactly he was talking to at that particular juncture. It was great. Okay, coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk with Amherst College professor Ilan Stavans about how language is far more than the words we speak, but the culture we share. He's got this new book all about dictionaries, and he talks a lot about how different countries say they're a democracy or they're a dictatorship, how the words they choose buttresses the government that they're in, which I'd never thought of. Anyway, I am Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Amherst College professor Ilan Stavans is next.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, calling all Bruins fans from the franchise's first puck drop in 1924 to the record-shattering 2022-23 season, Mike Comito has pulled together a story for every day of the year in Bruins 365. Whether you're reliving Bobby Orr's legendary goal or reflecting on a rivalry-defining clash with the Leafs, this is a must-read for anyone who bleeds black and gold. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Revolutionary Valley. On April 19th, 1775 in Lexington and Concord, the first shots of the Revolution rang out. This is the heart of Revolutionary Valley. RevolutionaryValley.org. Funded in part by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion strategy recommendations to organizations that align with their culture and business priorities. Learn more at inclusionitsworthit.com. Global View Communications. Inclusion. It's worth it.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder with streaming youtube.com/GBH News. You're not at the library this week. We'll keep you posted. Hope back soon. We are joined by the Attorney General, we hope, at the library on November. And I mentioned on Friday, a lot of you are excited. Yo-Yo Ma is going to join us at the library on November 19th. We're joined now on Zoom by Ilan Stavans, Professor of Humanities in Latin American and Latino Culture at Amherst College. He joins us monthly. His latest book, just out, is Conversations on Dictionaries, the Universe in a Book. Also the publisher of Restless Books, an independent nonprofit publisher devoted to championing essential voices from around the world. Ilan, I have to be honest with you. When I heard about the book and we had to go home and read it, I cannot tell a lie. I was dreading it, and it was totally and completely mesmerizing. I really love this thing. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
It's such a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, you circulate in a very rarefied world. Let's put it that way. This is unusual
Great,
people,
though.
but it's great stuff. So elaborate on what's the book? What'd you focus on?
The book, Marjorie, is a collection of 22 different conversations, not interviews, but the long conversations with the 22 different dictionary makers in 22 different languages, from Arabic to Latin to French and English and Spanish and Hebrew and Yiddish and Esperanto. And the purpose is to understand the role that dictionaries have had in each of those cultures, who was behind the dictionaries, what was censored from the dictionaries, did the governments underwrite them, was the patriotic feel that the dictionaries had. It's amazing how dictionaries have played such an important role in bringing nations together and giving them an identity and a sense of mission and of self.
Give us an example of that. You talk about in the lead, I don't know if it's called whatever it is, the beginning of the book, you talk about the relationship, as you just suggested, between dictionaries and nation building. Give us an example of that relationship.
Well, one interesting example, Jim, is that in 1492, the same year that Spain expelled its Jews and that Columbus crossed the ocean blue, the very first dictionary of the Spanish language was produced, and the purpose was to create a sense that Spain had a view, a mission, that it was different from England and from France. And ironically, it was a Converso Jew, the part of that community that had been expelled, that was behind this project to bring Spain together under a single language. They had already done it under one religion.
You know, tell us too about this whole group of people that you talked with, the language scholars and I always mispronounce this word,
lexicographers.
Thank you. Yeah, who are these people? What are
Who are these people?
Yeah, and I guess Samuel Johnson had no use for So tell us about say it again, Jim.
Well, how about having Ilan? Lexicographer.
Lexicographer.
There you go.
That's why I'm here, Ilan.
Yeah.
Lexicographers are people whose main concern is the cataloging and the understanding of language. And they do all kinds of things. They see where words come from, how they develop over time. They put them together in thesauruses and dictionaries, and monitor the way words go in and out of fashion, how they change their spelling, the new words that come about, mainly from younger people. Younger people tend to be much more liberal when it comes to language, and they are very inventive with new words. And older people tend to be more conservative and protect the old words.
And why did Samuel Johnson, who was a great writer himself, have such a animus toward them?
Well, Samuel Johnson was the first dictionary, the single person that, the man who produced a dictionary only on his own. Today, all the dictionaries are done by committee. It's like creating a camel by committee. And, in this case, it was a single man who spent many years putting this dictionary together. And in the very end, it became sour at the idea that a person who does nothing else but just look at how words are shaped, like new galaxies emerging, it can become isolated from the world and be put in a silo in the imagination of the
Okay.
We're talking to Ilan Stavans from Amherst College. His latest, he's editing the whole thing, Conversations on Dictionaries, the Universe in a Book. I'm sorry.
And when you talk about how societies are shaped and countries are shaped, I would imagine that means that maybe in a democracy there are certain things are allowed, or maybe in authoritarian countries they're not?
Yeah.
Like what?
There have been authoritarian regimes throughout history that not only have burned books that they didn't support and they didn't want people to be reading, but limited the type of words that people could use on the street, or words that could be printed on the page, thinking that the words that they were hoping to get out were going to cleanse the mind and purify the soul of the people. And in democracies, it's the opposite. In pluralistic democracies that have a lot of immigrants coming from different parts, like the United States, we constantly get infused with new words that are coming from other languages that are adapted into our jargon. The English of the United States, for that reason, keeps on expanding through Spanish and Creole and Japanese and Chinese and the languages of Africa. It's just an extraordinary phenomenon of English absorbing from other languages.
So, Ilan, I read in, I think it's the introduction, I'm not sure, and you went out of your way about 10 seconds into our interview right here to say these are not interviews, these are conversations. Are you protesting too much? They are.
I will never protest against you in any way. You said conversations, interviews, just intimate ways of knowing each other.
But I'm serious. Why do you recoil? Maybe that's too strong a word. Why do you move? They are interviews, aren't they? I mean,
well, they are. To me, Jim, an interview is more a question starting from one end and answers coming from the opposite end. These are dialogues in which the questions come from both sides. It is sometimes unpredicted where the things are going to go. In that sense, I meant.
So before we get to my favorite part of the book, which we're going to do in a second.
And I have one before you get to your favorite.
Okay, well, let me do
my
one and then yours. Did you write, I mean, again, I was honest at the beginning that I was not into this and I was proven to be totally wrong. Did you write this for academics or do you write it for a broader audience?
I am always dreaming not to write for academics.
Okay.
I live in academia, and I think we are too isolated. And it's crucial that academia connects with the rest of the world, especially in this type of efforts. We in academia, we don't need to know more about dictionaries. I think the dialogue has to take place with society at large.
I just have one thing before Jim gets to his favorite part. Maybe because I took Latin in school, or because I had an English teacher, I had to diagram sentences, because I'm old, basically. I always took it seriously. It's between you and me, not between you and I, and preposition phrases and all that. And it's gone. I mean, no one seems to care. Newspapers are full of mistakes.
We did a whole segment on Friday about misuse of phrases in the English language.
But you talk about the Académie Française, which I think has to do with, keeping the language, kind of monitoring the language. But in the United States, we don't know how to speak English anymore, and nobody seems to care except old people like me. Really?
Let me start by saying you're not old.
I'm getting there.
The role of dictionaries on the one hand, and the role of academies, in the sense of the term that you used it, Marjorie, that is an entity, not a university, that has a mission to protect, to safeguard, to catalog, to study a language like the Académie Française or the Real Academia Española in Spain, are fascinating institutions that want to corral the language, want to protect it, want to give a sense of pride. And for a variety of interesting reasons, English, not only in the United States, English in England, English in Canada, doesn't have an academy. Early on with the founding fathers, John Adams and others proposed that if we didn't have an academy, the language was going to be, I'm quoting Adams, would be going to the dogs, meaning it would be destroyed by the illiterate, by the masses. It turns out that not having an academy leaves the people with a responsibility both of creating the language and pushing it over the edge, and also protecting it. It's our responsibility to say this is the way the language should be spoken. I am not fully convinced at a crucial place in understanding how the language, English, is moving. I don't believe that we have given up on all rules and regulations. I think there are still, in many schools, teachers that are very serious about prepositions and building the structure of the sentence. But the beauty of English is that it has a lot of elasticity. It's not a restrictive language. It's a language that encourages to experiment. And I think that is also the spirit of the people that use the language.
Okay, so one last question. When you get a paper, and Amherst College is one of the hardest colleges in the country to get into. They're always at the top, Amherst and Williams. When you get a paper that's full of grammatical errors, do you bother to correct them, or do you just say, hey, it's a new generation, who cares?
If the grammatical errors are there as errors, I correct them. If it's clear from the paper that the student wants to play with language and is putting the errors in a particular way, then I applaud it and might get an A.
Okay.
I'm Jim Browdy. My co-host is the 92-year-old Marjorie Egan, and we're talking Ilan. So, Ilan, I read your book out of order. And for some reason, I have no idea why. I read the epilogue first, which is one of the best stories ever, Mr. Pepperdick or whatever his name was. And I'm going to ask you to summarize it briefly, but I read this story and I was so taken by it. I was about to text Marjorie until I don't know why, read the introduction. And at the end of the introduction, you say, which I should have read first, maybe I shouldn't have read first. The epilogue is the 20-second conversation, although it is somewhat different. This one is a fictionalized narrative based on real-life events. So two things. Just give us a taste of your encounter with Mr. Peppernick. And two, how close to real-life events was it? You can take them in that order.
Okay. The last section of the book, this conversation, is called The Total Dictionary, and it recounts, though in this, reconstructed way, about which I'll tell you in a second, a dialogue that I had with a very wealthy man on Madison Avenue who was intent on giving me an outsized amount of money to put together a dictionary of dictionaries, a dictionary that would contain all the dictionaries with all the words that each of these dictionaries had ever produced since the beginning of humankind. That's in itself a mind-blowing suggestion. And I said to him, why would anybody do something like that if people barely use a dictionary these days? Why put together a dictionary of dictionaries? But I was in love with the concept that we could really put in between covers, or if it was done online, all the words. Can you imagine, Jim, all the words that have ever used with humankind, from Phoenician and Akkadian to Spanglish and Portuñol, all the new languages that are appearing? It's a deliciously lunatic idea. It's a quixotic idea, and for that reason I loved it. How far is it from the truth? Well, the outsized amount of money, which I regret not having taken, it was true, and so was Mr. Pepperdick, but with another name, and some details have been changed to embellish reality, which sometimes is a little too dry.
Let me just say, the story itself, I don't want you to go into it because I want people to buy the book. As interesting as your retelling of the story is, it is 1,000 times more interested in the actual reading. It is great. So many turns and twists. It's great.
Ilan, that's an important question. Dictionary's value in 2025, because people are online. They've got spell check on their computers, and you can look up a word in a second. Where does dictionaries now fit in this world?
You'll be surprised, Marjorie, that my students, as extraordinary as they are, and I truly believe I have some of the best students in the galaxy, are now having difficulty alphabetizing, because the internet doesn't ask you to remember that the E comes before the F, and so you have to put the finger in the dictionary. You can just put the F online, and it immediately sends you to its place. There was a certain kind of attitude when you had to open the dictionary and know it was organized alphabetically. Yeah, the print form version of dictionaries, it's on its way out, although Merriam-Webster still sells many, many copies. Dictionaries come online. There are pseudo dictionaries. Google has a dictionary that has kind of stolen from other type of dictionaries. AI have replaced the value that Merriam-Webster and the Oxford English Dictionary have had for many years. I think we're witnessing a moment in which the dictionaries are being transformed very fast. I don't believe we'll give them up, though. I believe that the fact that we have in one book all the possible words that we might use to say whatever we want to say is something that people will still cherish for generations.
By the way, we have a text from a Mr. Peppernick who's asking you to reconsider. We can do that after the... So, Ilan, can we change gears? I want to say again, the book is really, really something. Edited by Ilan Stavans, Conversations on Dictionaries, the Universe in a Book. It's just out. We have Bill de Blasio is our 11 o'clock guest tomorrow, the former mayor of New York City. Talk about this incredible race in New York City between 33-year-old Zohran Mamdani, would be the first Muslim mayor of New York City, obviously Andrew Cuomo, who's got a little bit of baggage, to say the least, and Curtis Sliwa, who's been there for about 400 years since I lived there. I know you know this. It is the largest Muslim and largest Jewish population in America. Pardon me? New York City, I'm sorry. Yeah, he'd be the first Muslim, as I said. And the campaign in the final days between Cuomo and from Cuomo and Sliwa, and particularly business people who aren't crazy about Mamdani, is those of you who are Jewish in New York City, be afraid, be very afraid. And not only did Mamdani not run away from it, here's a clip from, I think it was Friday, his message to New Yorkers who were Muslim. Here he is.
And every day, super PAC ads imply that I'm a terrorist or mock the way I eat. Push polls that ask New Yorkers questions like whether they support invented proposals to make halal mandatory, or political cartoons that represent my candidacy as an airplane hurtling towards the World Trade Center. But I do not want to use this moment to speak to them any further. I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of the city. There are 11 days remaining until Election Day. I will be a Muslim man in New York City each of those 11 days. And every day that follows after that.
Boy, I'll tell you. What'd you make of how both the issue and how Mamdani dealt with this?
I think Mamdani is a very inspired and inspiring speaker, a young generation that represents true change in a city and in a country that desperately needs it. The fact that the very city where we had 9/11 is now about to elect a mayor who is Muslim says a lot about the maturity of our country, in spite of the tensions, in spite of the rhetoric that is being played. My impression also, Jim, is that the media is pushing, and the political elite are pushing this way beyond the pale. I am not convinced that the electorate itself is feeling all these conflicted emotions the way that they are being portrayed in newspapers, magazines, radio.
By the way, the most recent poll I saw, which is about a week ago, of Jewish New Yorkers, it's almost a dead heat between Cuomo and Mamdani. So I think your analysis is totally right.
It's generational.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
generational. Younger people tend to be much more progressive, and on the Mamdani side, and Cuomo comes with a big baggage. I mean, both of them in the end have baggage. One of them represents a new way of presenting the Islamic politician, and Cuomo is, oh my God, has so many different issues with him, and yet represents the establishment. And ironically, he would be the Jewish choice. I find this to be a very manipulative conversation by the certain very worried, very anxious Jewish establishment figures who are hesitant and resistant to change.
Yeah, by the way, as I want to repeat, we have the former mayor, Bill de Blasio, who went to Cambridge Rindge in Latin high school. I have no idea why. We'll ask him.
He must have learned some grammar. I'm hoping.
He joins us at 1 o'clock tomorrow. You know, we only have a minute left. Staying on this for a second, I'm not sure how fair this analysis is. While Trump goes out of his way to call Mamdani a terrorist, not terrorist, I'm communist, I'm sorry. Some of his opponents are using the terrorism language. He seems to have a certain something for Mamdani. I'm not saying if he was voting in New York City, he'd vote him. Do you detect any of that? I mean, there's a certain...
I do detect it. I would have thought that Trump, who has use his typical rhetoric against Mamdani, would be much more vociferous, much more aggressive. Maybe he has sent his vice president to do that type of job. The vice president recently complained that when Mamdani was talking about an aunt after September 11 being fearful on the subway because of the looks, Vance said, well, you should be focusing on the victims, not on your aunt who might be afraid of how she looks. It is a ridiculous statement by the vice president. I have the impression that is a very shrewd man. He can read the electorate quite well, is knowing that this represents a change, and as an 80 or close year old man wants to give some room to the next generation, only to debunk it once they are in office. But he is registering that change strongly, I think.
Congratulations yet again.
Thank you very much.
Really terrific work.
Yeah, congratulations.
It's such a pleasure,
too.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Ilan Stavans is a professor of humanities and Latin American and Latino culture at Amherst College. The latest book, Conversations on Dictionaries, the Universe in a Book. Up next, we're going to talk podcast, TV culture with Nick Quah from Vulture. He's Vulture's culture critic. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is Boston Public Radio.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Direct Tire and Auto Service, offering a full range of services, including brakes, shocks, diagnostics, and AC work. Direct Tire and Auto Service. Not just service, customer service. DirectTire.com. Strategic, manipulative, infamous. The new two-part American Experience is an incisive portrait of the controversial policy power broker, Kissinger. Premieres tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR. We'll start the noon hour with some culture and Vulture's podcast and culture critic, Nick Quah, on a couple of podcasts and an AI actor who's going big time.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll check in with A New Policy, a group that aims to reform United States policy toward the Middle East. We'll talk to co-founders Josh Paul and Tariq Habash on what they think multiple U.S. administrations have gotten wrong. All that, plus our beloved Two More Things segment, next on the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. It's day 27 of the government shutdown, the second longest in U.S. history. Military paychecks and federal food services are set to stop as Congress shows few signs of a funding breakthrough. Here's NPR's Luke Garrett.
The Department of Agriculture says the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will end food assistance by November 1st. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tells ABC News funds are running out to pay the troops.
We're going to be out of money on November 15th. And, for a military not to get paid is a disgrace.
Republicans and Democrats can't agree on how to fund the government. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tells CBS News Democrats want to negotiate.
There is an urgent need to reopen the government, which is why we continue to demand that Republicans sit at the negotiating table.
President Trump and Republican leaders say they won't negotiate until Democrats first vote to reopen the government. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
Off a weekend of signing tariffs and critical minerals deals in Malaysia, President Trump is in Japan. There, he is due to meet with Japan's new prime minister, a diehard conservative, and the first Japanese woman to serve in that role as prime minister. Later, President Trump heads to South Korea, where NPR's Mara Liasson reports Trump is due to hold a highly anticipated meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
On the plane to Asia, President Trump told reporters, he said, China will have to make concessions and we will too. So the big question is, which concessions will Trump make? Will he let China buy more advanced semiconductor chips? Some national security experts say that would be dangerous. Would he soften the U.S. stance toward Taiwan and say the U.S. opposes Taiwanese independence? That's something China would like.
NPR's Mara Liasson reporting. People are getting ready in Jamaica. Hurricane Melissa has intensified with top winds of 165 miles per hour. As it nears the island, Jamaica is bracing for what forecasters say is the most powerful hurricane to ever make landfall on the island. NPR's Ada Peralta reports Hurricane Melissa is expected to come on shore overnight.
The National Hurricane Center says Hurricane Melissa is now a top-of-the-scale Category 5 hurricane. The storm is forecast to move right through the middle of the island early Tuesday morning. Jamaica's Meteorological Service says the outer bands of Melissa have already reached the island, and they are expecting a life-threatening storm surge of 9 to 13 feet. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the whole island should expect flash floods and landslides.
While we must prepare for the worst, let us also pray for the best.
Holness asked everyone to heed evacuation orders. Ada Peralta, NPR News, Mexico City.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was up 250 points, or roughly 0.5%, at 47,455. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Harvard University has told alumni interviewers not to include any information about an applicant's race, ethnicity, or national origin in their written evaluations this admissions cycle. And if they do, they'll risk seeing their evaluations tossed in the trash. The Crimson reports the changes have been shared with alumni interviewers in a series of training sessions that were conducted this fall. New rules also included in the alumni interviewer handbook with the line, since race, ethnicity, and national origin may not be considered, interviewers should not reference them in the interview report. The rule also states that the interviewers cannot mention which countries the applicants' families come from. Legendary Boston-based brewing company Sam Adams is out with a new beer so unique that it's illegal to buy in 15 states, but Massachusetts is not one of them. It's the 14th vintage of a genre-defying Utopia's beer, and this one is historic. Utopia's 2025 is 30 proof, making it one of the strongest beers ever brewed. And Sam Adams CEO Jim Cook says it took he and his team 30 years to produce, and at $240 per bottle, it's meant to be sipped 1 ounce at a time. Yikes. Bruins in Ottawa tonight, Celtics in New Orleans for a game against the Pelicans. Monday Night Football, Washington is at Kansas City. World Series continues tonight with the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are not, unfortunately, at the Boston Public Library tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll keep you posted when we're going to be back. Ask the Attorney General. We're going to be joined by Andrea Campbell, November 4th from 11 till noon. And Yo-Yo Ma, the renowned cellist, will join us November 19th.
And he's playing, by the way. He's not just talking.
That's right.
He is playing. We're joined now via Zoom. He'll be talking, too, by Nick Quah. He writes about culture for Vulture and New York Magazine. His column, all about podcasts and what you should be listening to, is called 1.5 times Speed. Nick, it's great to see you. Welcome back.
Of course. How's it going?
Yeah, great to talk to you. So tell us about Tilly Norwood, the person I keep looking at and thinking, she looks so real. But of course, she's not. Fill us in.
Yeah, funny that she used the word person.
I know. I feel like she's a person. She's crying. She's laughing. She's fooling around.
It's funny. So is Bluey, the cartoon dog. This is the interesting thing about the story.
That's correct.
So, the larger macro situation here is that, we're at least maybe a year, a couple of months deep into this question around, how is the current modern iteration of artificial intelligence, specifically the things that you associate with ChatGPT or OpenAI, you put in a prompt, you produce images and you produce analysis, but specifically in this case for Hollywood, you produce lifelike looking human characters that can be populated into, television and movies that otherwise you would assume is filled with flesh and blood people. So this was a kind of a strange news cycle. There was a conference, a film festival recently at Zurich, and there was one of these sort of dry business conferences. And one of these panels in these conferences was what is the future of AI in Hollywood? And this startup founder, this woman who is both an actress, a comedian, and also apparently now a startup founder, she claims that her company is an AI studio in the sense that she's able to sort of develop film, characters, television, and that quote unquote agents are circling a particular character that she sort of developed that's been used in an ad somewhere, I think. And this character, is a beautiful in the way that a lot of AI characters seem to be generically, good looking. And the notion that human agents, as in people at CAA or UTA or something, was circling, signing this character, and I'm using square quotes here, kind of raise a hubbub. It's okay, if this is a thing, what is the ramifications for human labor and acting, for human performance, but also seriously for the labor structure? How do talent agents work in this case? And so it kicked off this huge existential brouhaha, and folks are still trying to figure out what it all means.
I heard Whoopi Goldberg on The View saying, you can always tell them from us. I couldn't tell her from us.
Neither could I.
I mean, maybe if someone said to me in advance, is that AI or is that a real woman? Maybe I could have done it. But if I was just watching it, I would have had no idea that was not, as Marjorie called her, a woman, a person. Could you?
No, I couldn't. So the trick here is and it's just the same sort of question with generative artificial intelligence and misinformation online, right? You see a quote unquote news image or a news video that is artificial and fake, and if it moves quickly enough and you pay just not enough attention to it, you might not be able to tell it's real. And that's the real issue here. With the Tilly Norwood character, if I was not paying close attention to the performance, I would not tell. But the tricky thing here is that, there's the defense that Hollywood, and I think a lot of just general people who are somewhat skeptical about generative AI are making, is that, like, it's never going to replace human labor. It's never going to replace human creativity. I don't necessarily know if that is true, because when I see the Tilly Norwood sort of footage, I go, like, she is as good, if not better, than a really bad actor. And so this is kind of what we're talking about here. It's not really about, like, the best of the best, not the Daniel Day-Lewis's that she will market correct. It would be like the people who are at the beginning of their careers or extras, right?
Yeah. Well, I would add to that, though, maybe Tilly Norwood is better than really bad actor on whatever this is, October 27th. Is she not Meryl Streep in 6 months? I mean, obviously, look at the quality of this stuff a month ago, 2 months ago, and now. So I'm not sure that we're going to get to... And, I would like to think the American people will, for the most part, reject this. I think not. Do you?
I am really unsure, because part of the trickiness here is the nature in which we're framing the problem, or we're framing the question. Ultimately, we're asking, when people want to consume a piece of art, what is the thing that they're connecting to, and what is the sort of components of this art that they really want to sort of see and value and pay money for? This is a very crass, like, comparison, but it is one that I feel like has a germ of an idea. I don't have a really small kid, but really small kids seem to respond really strongly to something like Cocomelon, which is purely procedural generative AI, very fake-looking stuff.
Yeah.
And there's this we're a couple of decades into this larger conversation about, like, the dumbing down of popular culture, and, like, you can make trash and people will consume it. So I don't know how human preferences are going to change in this situation, but there is, I think, always a desire for human connection, hopefully. This sounds really post-apocalyptic or really apocalyptic right now, but, like, all of which is to say something is going to change. Something's going to change fundamentally. I, as a person who writes about culture and art, really believes that the human element will stay. But the question is, for how many people, and will the economic structure on it still exist to support human production and human art?
Yeah, one last thing about this. I know nothing about making movies, but I know a lot of my friends have gone out to be extras. You get $300 a day, and they're there for 12 hours, and you get to be, the scene in a basketball game or something like that. That's where you could see those opportunities just going out the window, because you could just make all these little AI people to be in the crowd or being on the street scene or all that kind of stuff. That whole genre, I think, will be done, I think.
Intelligence, like, one of the interesting indicators of this is the collapse of youth employment. You used to be able to have a kid, pay a teenager to wash your car or something, but with automation, you don't need teenagers to wash your car anymore. This is like an accelerated version of that kind of scales much wider. I live in Vancouver, like, it's land of the extras. I would love to be an extra, but this is going to take away my opportunity to do so.
Speaking of Vancouver, let's talk about Vancouver, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Aaron Sorkin came to town, correct? What's he doing there?
The spirit of Aaron Sorkin, at least at this point in time. I'm sure he's coming into town eventually. So he is filming what is being framed as a follow-up to The Social Network, the incredible Aaron Sorkin film that was directed by David Fincher about Mark Zuckerberg and the rise of Facebook. I personally think it's one of the greatest films of the 21st century. So a couple of months ago, he tells the trades, like, I figured out how to make the sequel. And everybody's like, why would you want to make the sequel? You already made the perfect movie. And he's since sort of reframed it as, like, what he wants to film is a companion piece that specifically actually tackles the whistleblower that drew a lot of attention to via the Wall Street Journal, to a lot of collapses in Facebook and Meta.
Frances Haugen.
Meta's sort of lapse in policies around misinformation, things like youth endangerment based on exposures they have on the platform and things like that. And here in Vancouver, he seemed to have reenacted the January 6th insurrection for the purposes of this movie. I was told that the movie's not just about the January 6th insurrection, that this is one of many things that they're exploring in terms of the impact of Facebook. But it was really interesting because I was walking downtown and I saw a bunch of folks who were wearing camo gear and tactical gear and wearing MAGA hats and just, like, storming the art gallery. I'm like, Well, this is an interesting thing.
Oh, no.
You know, we had, by the way, speaking of the Social Network, we had Jesse Eisenberg in here a couple of years ago after he wrote a book of short stories.
Very talented writer.
He was brilliant writer. Why is the Social Network one of your favorite movies?
It is a character study of a kind of human being that we've become, that we attribute to sort of this modern tech Silicon Valley supremacy wave. But the Social Network is also just a very gripping interpersonal thriller and dynamic of a group of people who like are on this rise up to this thing that they can't even comprehend, and the sort of corruption of the soul and the sort of thrills and delights of it. It is such a fantastically made film that is really, it has Jesse Eisenberg giving one of the, I think, best performances of his career. But also I think that we're still kind of living in the ramifications of ambition leads to a lot of these other outcomes.
And Zuckerberg, obviously.
And the Winklevoss twins.
Winklevoss.
That we first said. So they're still all over the place.
They were at the crypto dinner at the White House the other day. You recognize them.
They're everywhere. So look, before we get to Adam Friedland, I just wanted to ask you, somewhere in the stuff I was reading for you, you talked about kind of the podcast business is sort of stalled, new ones aren't being made. Is this just a money thing, or what's going on?
So the podcast business has completely evolved. And I would make the argument that this is the first year that it's completed the transformation towards becoming cheaper video or cheaper television. So the way that the podcast business has been experiencing this is that it's shifting from audio to video. And, your show experiences too. Like, we're live streaming this. I'm sure video footage of this is on YouTube at some point. A lot of what advertisers and what major platforms, what major content executives see podcasts as are either really well done televistic YouTube videos or cheaper television. And so a lot of the podcasts that I used to cover, that I'm still covering to some extent, that I love, things like The Retrieval or Serial Productions and things like that, Heavyweight from Jonathan Goldstein, the money for that, the support for that is shrunk dramatically in sort of favor instead of, the Amy Poehler show or something like that.
Okay. So let me just ask you one question about this. Because to me, the beauty of podcasts is you're walking the dog, you're driving the car, you're doing something where you're not going to be watching, and you could clean the house, listen to these things. I don't, the idea of watching a lot of these things it takes away the whole reason that I like podcasts.
This is from a woman who has done a radio show with me for 26 years, the first half of which was exactly that, except live.
Right.
And the second half of which is, as Nick just said, streams on YouTube all the time.
Well, I don't know if I want to watch us either. I think I'd rather listen to us.
I should have done my hair, actually, if I knew this was going to be like.
Looking really good, Nick.
But you know what I mean? It's a whole different thing. And
it is.
And I get it costs a lot more money to do something like Retrievals. I get why that's expensive, or this Heavyweight thing I was listening to. I get that. That's very produced. But you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And, my personal take, and I feel like this is somewhat of a minority view, is that the podcast business at large is suffering from a kind of category collapse. We're not using specific enough words to talk about the shows that we want to support. So something like Heavyweight or This American Life, like, these are audio documentaries.
Yes.
And they have been beneficiaries of a much larger wave of excitement and interest around a technology called podcasting, right? And something like the Amy Poehler show, the Joe Rogan Experience, which have a lot more in common together than something like This American Life. These are radio shows. These are radio shows with a very strong video component, and they are now basically a stylistic subset. But when it comes to the question of, like, do I actually want to watch these things? I think, and I have not done the reporting to bear this out, but I feel like I'm close, is that the podcast business is being pretty disingenuous about what audiences want. They don't want to look at these people. They want to be able to just throw it on and listen to them as they're driving, because if I was driving and I was watching, say, the Joe Rogan Experience, I would get into a car crash.
Exactly.
But there's something in terms of what it's engaging and how it's drawing people in, and they're focusing on just the audience engagement part of it.
Okay.
We're talking to Nick Quah. So did you use the word televistic a minute ago? Was that the word you used?
Yes, he did.
I never heard that before. Is that what you used?
That's the word that I used. I almost said cinematic, but it's like, well, I'm not talking about cinema. I'm talking about television.
So speaking of televistic YouTube video, Adam Friedland on YouTube. Here, I guess the most talked, at least as far as I know, the most talked about interview he's done with the Bronx Congressman Richie Torres, and obviously talking about Israel. Here's just a little piece.
The war is a tragedy, but again, you're suggesting that
They've killed journalists.
People have been killed in a war. It's been a tragedy.
They've killed people waiting for aid.
But you're suggesting that it is the policy of the Israeli government to murder civilians, and that is a notion that I reject.
You gotta listen, man. You gotta be like a human being about this.
So, for those who don't know about Friedland, give us a taste of who he is and what he does there, Nick.
Yeah, Adam Friedland is a comedian. A couple of years ago, there's a broad movement or broad collection of kinds of comedians that primarily came up online through podcasts called the Dirtbag Left. They're self-styled socialists. They're punchy. They're very, edgelordy. They're irony-driven stylistically. And he came up through this show. I'm not so sure if I can say it on the radio, but the title of which, because it's a little obscene, but he was a part of a collection of comedians on that show, and he's since sort of branched out to build this kind of a weird cable access-ish YouTube show that is also a podcast. And now, in the current modern podcast environment, you could just call it a podcast. And it might remind you of something like Between Two Ferns, the sort of anti-interview show that Zach Galifianakis, a comedian, done 10 years ago at this point. But what he's doing in the show is sort of interesting. I mean, he's a really funny person. Vulture just sort of named him among the sort of notable comedians of the year, or comedians you should know. But he is part of this interesting layer now of, I guess you could call culture shows, comedy shows, pop culture platforms that politicians have understood that they should probably get on if they want to access younger audiences, primarily men. We just sort of rolled off 2024 election cycle, of which Donald Trump went on a lot of these sort of quote-unquote manosphere shows. Adam Friedland's show is not one of these sort of manosphere shows, but it is this notion of today's modern audiences, their tastes, their worldview, their politics actually being shaped by comedians and shows like this. And Adam Friedland is one of perhaps the most interesting one of these, because he actually really has a lot of strong views about a bunch of different things, but it's couched in a really interesting valence of humor that he kind of gets in with the interviews.
Well, I listened to his interview with Senator Chris Murphy, and it was, you think Murphy's kind of a Boy Scouty kind of guy, from Connecticut and Wethersfield, I guess. And Friedland did a totally different interview where, Murphy's swearing and he's talking about his childhood, and it's a little Howard Sterny in a way too, without all the stuff about sex and who's got huge, a huge bus line.
Exactly right.
I mean, it's very similar to that, with a totally different side of the politician.
Howard Stern is exactly the right reference here. Is it as if we have generated 100 more Howard Sterns, many of which are younger, and they're all refracting from different pockets of the political ideology spectrum. But again, these are ultimately entertainment shows. Adam Friedland's bread and butter are comedians or cultural figures. They're not politicians, but Chris Murphy went on. He would not be the last politician that goes on this show. And if you kind of look down the line at other podcasts of similar types, like Flagrant, which is this more harder-edged, very much more sort of aggressively masculine podcast, Zoran Mamdani just went on that show to sort of pitch his housing policy. This is a trend. And it's as if Howard Stern we have 100 of him, and they're all political.
We're talking to Nick Quah. Nick, you and Marjorie have mentioned the Retrievals that's back for season 2. Here's sound from the trailer for season 2. You'll hear multiple women recounting. We don't have it. Okay, well, you won't hear
it's
multiple
excruciating.
women. Yeah.
Basically getting cesarean sections without anesthesia, just like before the Retrievals. Before that was about them retrieving eggs from women who had fertility issues without anesthesia.
It's the pain podcast, essentially.
It's
the
pain podcast. Yeah. It's the pain. It is excruciating.
Tell us about season 2, if you would.
Absolutely. it's a hard sell for a show because it's very visceral, very, very sort of gripping in that sense. So the Retrievals, the first season was about that came out in 2023, was about this case that's largely took place in the New Haven medical system, the Yale health system, in which a nurse was stealing pain-killing medication for her own uses, and as a result, leading women who came for egg retrieval procedures to feel the whole thing. And that story was about the sort of structural, systematic dismissal of women's pain. And so the second season, which came out earlier this year, actually, tries to answer the question of how exactly do you introduce or cultural change to the healthcare system. And she and Susan Burton, who did reporting for both seasons and is the host for both of them, took up this case in Illinois where a couple of women went through their own cesarean sections without pain-killing medication.
Can you imagine cutting into your belly? Oh!
No, I can't. It's very sort of harrowing. And it's one of those things where it happens. It does happen. There's a percentage of the procedures in which this is the case, and so the story starts with that sort of grim horror, but it then proceeds to go, who are the researchers who are trying to introduce more awareness of women's pain when they sort of object to the pain that they're experiencing, how the hospital system is able to absorb it. She tries to do this in a way that kind of frames the narrative of the second season as if it's a medical procedural, because it's so hard to talk about A, women's pain, B, systematic change. It's really just a kind of a difficult thing to communicate through a narrative. And it's a really fascinating attempt to do so, and I think quite successfully.
We do have the sound now that I was teasing. Again, multiple women are talking about this excruciating pain they experience during C-sections. Here it is.
I was rushed into this C-section. My husband was there, and I could feel them starting the operation. I could feel the incision.
And the doctor asked me, "Do you feel pressure?" And I said, "No, I feel everything." And everybody kept telling me, "Oh, you're just feeling a lot of pressure." And I was like, "No, I'm pretty sure this is just pain." And they said, "Well, that's not possible. If you were feeling it, you would pass out from the pain." And I was like, I wish I could pass out from the pain, because I could feel them taking my organs out and moving them. I could feel them pulling the baby. I mean, it was major abdominal surgery without full anesthesia.
This is a great podcast, though. I mean, the job they did on both of these seasons is phenomenal, even though it's tough to listen to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the New York Times, which owns the Serial Productions, they've been doing a lot of health reporting, using the Serial Productions team to do so. They just had a new show out called The Preventionist, which tackles another phenomenon that has to do with the pediatric system. But they're really, really going really hard on health reporting. I'm very glad that they're doing so.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes left. You wrote about the final Marc Maron show. We've played sound several times from Barack Obama, primarily because it came a week or two after we had Mark Leibovich on, who wrote the piece for The Atlantic, Where is Barack Obama? And he occasionally actually appears and speaks. You weren't crazy about Maron's selection of Obama for the final show. Why?
I understood why he brought Obama on for his final show, because Obama went on Marc Maron's show many, many years ago, and it is very deep and central to the lore of both the show and podcasting at large. Many would argue that sort of that Obama appearance was the thing that opened up the door for politicians to go on podcasts in general. But I believe that the story of an interview show, any interview show, is a story about the interviewer. And I want to hear, when I'm saying goodbye to an interviewer, a host that I've had a relationship with for a very long time, that I want it to be about them.
Yeah,
not about.
That's a great point.
Yeah, not the larger figure, not taking stock of the political landscape of 2025. And I can get that many other places, and President Obama has many other outlets to do that. But Marc Maron, for his penultimate show, the episode he released before the Obama interview, he just did one of those very long monologues that tend to open up the show, and that was a lot of really nice pathos and catharsis, and where he reflected on what the show meant to him, and that's the stuff that I want. That's a perfect final episode.
I'm going to check it out. I didn't hear that one. What?
Remember that, Jim?
No, how about my last television show?
Oh, that's right. Jim did a brilliant last television show.
Well, I wouldn't say it was brilliant, but it was supposed to be Governor Baker, who had to cancel at the last minute. And who did I have instead?
Me.
You, yeah, exactly. We talked about me.
I reflected on Jim's long television career.
Thank you very much.
It was a beautiful moment for us both.
It was actually quite beautiful. Thank you.
That's the perfect ending. That's the perfect ending.
Yeah, it's easy for him to say because he didn't see it. Hey, Nick, it's great to see you.
Great to talk to you, Nick.
Again
Thank
soon.
you.
Thanks so much.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Have a good one.
See you later.
Nick Quah.
We've been speaking with Nick Quah, who writes about culture for Vulture and New York Magazine, which is one of the great magazines of all time. His column, all about podcasts and what you should be listening to, is at 1.5x speed. That's 1.5x speed. Nick Quah, thank you very much. After this quick break, 2 former Biden administration officials resigned over that president's handling of Middle East policy and the war in Gaza. Since then, they've launched their own lobbying firm to try to reshape Reshape U.S. Foreign Policy. Josh Paul and Tariq Habash of A New Policy are next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Let's finish John stuff. We're ready.
Generous paid family leave is common in European countries like Finland. Despite this and other government support for new parents, birth rates across Europe remain low, leaving researchers puzzled.
So we cannot really any longer say that it's our good family policies that explain good fertility in the Nordics.
The rising norm of smaller families, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Celebrity Series of Boston, presenting vocalist Cecile McLaurin-Salvant in a program that spans Baroque, blues, musical theater, and jazz. Live on November 1st at Berkeley Performance Center. More at celebrityseries.org. And Rocky Ruggiero, making art and history come to life, offering travel programs to Italy, online education and webinars, and in-person cultural events throughout the U.S. Learn more at rockyruggiero.com.
Welcome back to BPR. She's Marjorie Egan. I'm Jim Browder. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are not at the library tomorrow or Wednesday. Our apologies. They're doing some work on the studio. We'll let you know. Some November dates to make note of. The Attorney General joins us for an hour on November 4th. Take our questions and yours. Mayor Wu joins us for an hour on November 18th. Same thing. The governor, by the way, missed October. What's that about, Marjorie? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, Jim.
Nor do I. We are trying to schedule her. And Yo-Yo Ma will join us talk and play on November 19th. Tomorrow morning at 11, Bill de Blasio, former mayor of New York, will join us, talk about that incredible election in New York City. After Hamas launched its assault on Israel on October 7th of 2023, Israel responded with immediate force, and the U.S. did too, sending arms and munitions to its ally in the Middle East as Israel waged full-scale war. You've seen the result. Back in October of that year, Josh Paul was a director in the State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs. He was involved in many complex debates about when to send weapons and to whom. But in the weeks after Hamas' terrorist attack and the subsequent Israeli incursion into Gaza, he was struck by how little debate was actually occurring within the State Department. By the end of the month, he'd resigned. Tariq Habash, a Palestinian-American working in Biden's Department of Education, also made the decision to resign by the year's end, citing a feeling of dehumanization when discussing the conflict with others in the administration. Since then, they've teamed up to launch something called A New Policy. It's a lobbying and political action group aimed at changing American policy towards the Middle East. Josh, by the way, will be participating in a panel at New England Law at 154 Stewart Street tomorrow at 5:30, sponsored by the Arab American Bar Association. Josh, Tariq, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So let's start with you, Tariq. How'd you guys get together? How'd that work out?
Can we go back first, by the way? I want more detail on the decision, if we can, about them deciding to leave those jobs. Is that okay?
Okay. Then we'll get you together. So, okay, let's start with you again, Tariq. Talk about leaving your job.
Yeah, so I was a political appointee in the Biden administration. I was there pretty much from the beginning. I helped, shape a lot of the campaign's policy positions on higher education, student debt. And when, the election happened, they needed someone who could actually make everything move, and so I was that guy, and I loved that work. I cared about helping millions of Americans have better access to affordable and high quality education. And that kind of changed when being Palestinian, being a political appointee, speaking up on, the fact that the Israeli government was committing collective punishment and war crimes against Palestinian civilians was really falling on deaf ears. I talked with, people in the White House, the National Security Council, Domestic Policy Council, with my own Secretary of Education. And, there was this dehumanization of Palestinians that was very clear, coming directly from the president, coming directly from the White House press secretary. And I felt like I couldn't even do my own job. I knew I was not the guy that got to make the calls on foreign policy, but I was leading higher education policy, and when you see college kids get gunned down in the streets for speaking Arabic over Thanksgiving holidays, it makes it pretty evident that, your own humanity is less than other people. And that was not the administration I had signed up for. That was not the politics I had signed up for. That's not what any of us should be striving to kind of like silence and suppress. And it was clear I had to leave. And fortunately, I had, I had a guide, in Josh, who had resigned a few weeks before I did. That was really helpful to helping me understand how I could leave.
How about it, Josh? Fill in a few blanks for us about your decision and your departure, if you would.
Yeah, I was working in something called the Bureau of Political Military Affairs at the State Department, which a lot of folks aren't familiar with, but it's basically the part of the U.S. government that's responsible for all of our arms transfers and security assistance around the world. And, I'd been part of complex decisions before. What I hadn't seen is an unwillingness to have any sort of discussion about the consequences of our actions. And in this context, in October of 2023, by the time I left, which was October 18th, was my last day, there were already 3,500 people who had been killed in Gaza. Most of them, almost all of them civilians, all of them at that point with American weapons that we had built and provided and most often paid for ourselves. And yet, when I turned around to senior officials and said, well, wait a second, how is this in our national interest? What about the law? What about the humanity? I was told, no time for questions. You just need to keep signing off on those authorizations, signing off on those weapons transfers, no questions asked.
Can I ask you, when in the first Trump administration, when there were actually a few people of principle, Marjorie and I used to discuss with guests all the time about whether or not they should stay or go. Was it more important to make a statement like you both did, or was it more important to stay there and, as much as you were butting your heads up against brick walls, attempt to at least have a voice for your point of view internally? Starting with you, Josh, why did you reject that approach?
Yeah, so I had been there through the previous Trump administration, and I'd actually had a resignation letter all typed up and held in my drawer, just ready to pull out and sign. But the reason that moment never came is because even under the first Trump administration, there was space for debate, space for discussion, space to shape policies and incrementally move things in the right direction. I think as a civil servant, that's the most you can hope for. You're not going to sort of flip the script, but you can make things better. And that was certainly the case under Biden as well, until it came to Gaza. And that's where, uniquely in my 20 years of experience in the U.S. government, any form of debate was shut down, and it was, just sign on the dotted line and keep those weapons going regardless of the harm they're doing. I think for others in government, and there were many who I spoke with and continue to speak with, if you are in a place where you can continue to shift things on humanitarian assistance, for example, then you should stay and try to move push the envelope. But on the arms transfer piece and Israel and Palestine, there was no space to make any difference.
Our staff has reminded us that the 20-year-old college student in Palestinian Irish American who was walking, Hisham Awatani, who was walking with buddies when he was gunned down, he's now paralyzed. He didn't die, but he's paralyzed now from the chest down, and he's 20 years old. He was just walking with friends when a man approached him with a gun and shot all three of them. What surprised me from the beginning of this, Tariq, and we did talk about it some with guests, why it was so hard for people to hold, okay, it was an atrocity, a terrorist atrocity would happen on October 7th, and then it became an unbelievable travesty what was happening to Palestinians. Why do you think that became so touchy for people to say, one is awful, the other is awful? Why do you think?
You're muted,
Oh, you're
Tariq.
muted, yep.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't know, because I don't think that it should be hard to say that a horrible thing happened and we shouldn't meet a bad thing with more bad things, right? Like if innocent people are suffering, let's put a stop to that, especially when we are the ones that are financially responsible for those horrible things.
What do you think, Josh? I wondered if it was just people's fear of being called anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, I think this also goes to the heart of the reason why Tariq and I founded A New Policy. It's because at the end of the day, this is a political problem. We have had countless conversations with elected officials, for example, with United States members of Congress, senators, who behind closed doors will say, what is happening is horrendous. I know that the weapons that we are providing to Israel are being used to commit war crimes, but I can't say that publicly. It's that obstacle. It's why can't you say publicly what you know to be true? That is a political obstacle that I think there is has been the case for many years, many decades. That, for example, criticism of Israel is an obstacle to public office. You will not be confirmed for a Senate-appointed position, a Senate-confirmed position, if you have been vocally critical before. And we need to overcome that because at the end of the day, Israel's interests don't always align with America's, much as any country's, any partner's interests don't always align with ours. We need to be able to have that free and open debate, just as we would anywhere else in the world. And, that's what we're setting out to do.
Well, it seems to me, Josh, you were describing just now the state of things for much of the last 2 years, but it seems to me things are moving. Look, we had the head of J Street in here last week, Jeremy Ben-Ami, and we were talking about the AIPAC on one hand, who is almost generally Israel right or wrong, and Seth Moulton was with us earlier in the week, who's announced that he's running against Ed Markey, said he was returning a significant amount of money to AIPAC, I think somewhere near $40,000. We quoted Charlemagne the God, who referred to Hakeem Jeffries as AIPAC Shakur. And I believe Jeremy told us, or we had read, that it was the first time that Jeffries had ever sought an endorsement from J Street. So maybe it's taken a long time for movement, Josh, but there is a greater acceptance that blind loyalty is not necessarily the best position, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't want to oversell that, though, right? I think it is significant, for example, that Moulton is returning AIPAC's money. But where are the accompanying votes? Where are the co-sponsorships in the House when it comes to conditioning our military transfers to Israel? When it comes to, our own human rights and civil rights here at home, where there are repeated attacks on the ability of people to speak up, to protest. Well, I think that there is very clearly a shift that is happening across American politics. And if you look at the polling, that shift is remarkable, particularly in the youngest generation, on both sides of the aisle.
Well, also with American Jews. There was a poll in the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago where a significant number of people were saying war crimes had been committed. It was pretty amazing to me, actually.
That's right. But is that shift going to translate into significant and lasting shifts in policy and how we spend our money, for example? I think we have yet to see that come through and follow through.
We're talking to Josh, Paul, and Tariq Habash, co-founders of an organization called A New Policy. You can check it out at anewpolicy.org.
Well, I was surprised to learn in Project 2025 that there's a section in there called Project Esther, which basically, you know about this, Tariq, you're nodding your head at me. You tell people what that says about Palestinians.
It's essentially a complete attack on American civil society from being able to have any sort of criticism of the U.S.-Israel relationship, of unconditional support, any criticism of the Israeli government's actions. And it's a policy guidebook on how to completely repress and suppress any sort of solidarity with the Palestinian people, and labeling anything that is somewhat critical as blatantly anti-Semitic, which obviously raises real concerns for the First Amendment, for our American civil liberties, on American institutions and organizations that are just doing general advocacy. I'd argue to say that the entire section is blatant racism against Palestinian people and people who stand in solidarity with them.
Well, I'm sorry, you go ahead. I was going to say a lot of African Americans have pointed out that they see a certain similarity in the dehumanization of African Americans and the dehumanization of Palestinians.
Absolutely. I think that there are a lot of parallels across marginalized communities with the Palestinian people, particularly today in 2025, where we've seen repeated efforts to stifle speech, to stifle organizing and activism because of everything that's going on. So I think you're exactly right.
Well, Tariq, you mentioned your expertise was higher ed. And speaking of weaponization of anti-Semitism, obviously Trump is elevated to an art form. And while Josh is talking about politicians who are not getting it, well, a few are, higher ed leaders have, the last week was great when 7 out of the 9 or 8 of the 9 universities or colleges rejected that compact from from Trump. But essentially, they've while they have attempted to say, yes, of course, there's anti-Semitism, maybe it's not as intense as you say, President Trump, but a lot of them have towed the line on that issue, not just Paul's, correct, Tariq?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they've towed the line even before Trump, just to be clear. I was at the Department of Education when we saw these circuses in Congress that were calling college presidents, including Harvard's president that was essentially forced to resign. There was no sort of protection for these institutions. There was essentially the dismantling of the independence of academia from political influences. The Biden administration did not do enough to protect these institutions and the academic freedom, which is the basic tenets of the democratic ideals that we all support and stand on. So the idea that there has been a lot of capitulation for the pressures to conflate any criticism of the Israeli government, any solidarity with the Palestinian people with this quote unquote anti-Semitism, it has been a long fought weaponization of these issues that Donald Trump was able to take over because there was not enough pressure against it before Trump came into power.
Josh, maybe we skipped, maybe it's obvious to people listening to the two of you, step back a little bit and talk about what the agenda of a new policy is and what its goals are, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So at the end of the day, we are here to try and address this imbalance in American politics, this political economic incentive structure that gets in the way when our politicians, or for that matter, our students, try to have the same sort of debate about Israel and Palestine as they would about any other country in the world. Beyond that, though, of course, there are certain principles that we adhere to. The first is that the Palestinians, like any other people in the world, have the right to self-determination, and that America's role is not to dictate, necessarily what the outcome looks like, but to, create the space for a just and lasting peace to emerge. But in doing so, that the United States must adhere to its own laws. Famously, for example, there is something called the Leahy Law that says that we as a nation cannot give security assistance to a unit of a foreign security force that is credibly alleged to be involved in gross violations of human rights. And that's a law that we apply around the world, with one exception. And I've been a part of that process in the State Department, where repeatedly allegations have been raised, and yet no political appointee, no senior official within the US government has been willing to say that an Israeli unit should have assistance withheld from it because of those violations. So look, we need to make sure that our own politics and processes are protected from that sort of bias, that sort of double standard. And then we need to either step up and make sure that a just and lasting peace is possible, or step back and get out of the way of one from happening.
Well, Josh, staying on that, if I can, Tariq, just for a second, or either of you can actually respond to this. When you led with self-determination there, that, I believe, leads you to the point that you don't specifically embrace a two-state solution. Is that correct? Your view? Well, Tariq, you're nodding. You can respond to it. Tell us why and what your position is.
Because self-determination means self-determination. It's something that all people are entitled to under international law. And if the Palestinian people don't have self-determination, we're essentially creating restrictions on what peace can look like. That's not our job as Americans to dictate to the Palestinian people what peace should be. It should be something that the Palestinian people and the Israeli people can all work on together. And we are only creating those restrictions on one side of the negotiating table. That's ultimately going to be bad for the American people as well. So that's the reason for that. And I do just want to say, at the end of the day, what a new policy is really here to do is recognize that our current positions as the United States is ultimately bad for the Palestinian people, it's bad for the Israeli people, and it's bad for Americans. Unconditional support for another country's policies is not good for us on an international stage. It's not good for our own national security, and it's not good for our democratic freedoms at home. We need an organization that is actually fighting for what's good for Americans and for the American people. And that is exactly what a new policy is doing. If AIPAC is out here saying that they have 5 million members that are always going to support an Israel-first approach to American politics, we need someone to counterbalance that. We need an organization that is actually saying, there are tens of millions of voting Americans who fundamentally disagree with that approach. That is who a new policy is. That is what we stand for, and we are going to advocate on those policies every single day to change American politics for good.
I'm sorry, you go ahead. I'm hoping that most of the audience is nodding as you're both are using the term self-determination, but how is giving Palestinians self-determination possible with Netanyahu and Hamas still in place, Josh?
So I think, first of all, the piece of the puzzle that we have to be focused on Americans is our role in this. When we are the country that is providing without any condition or without respect to our own laws, the weapons that are killing tens of thousands of people, we are greatly responsible not only for the harm that is done, but also as an obstacle to the just and lasting peace. We are part of the problem here. And so, I think there is plenty of misgovernance and bad governance on both the Israeli and the Palestinian side. But we as Americans have our own responsibilities. We are not responsible for who the Israelis choose to elect them. We are also ultimately not responsible for the Palestinian security forces, the Palestinian Authority, or the Palestinian polity. What we are responsible for is following our own laws and doing no harm, and allowing our own debates to play out. And that is where the obstacles are that we are focused on.
Josh, we're almost out of time, but I'm wondering, was there a time when it was not Israel right or wrong going back historically? Or has this always been this position since 1948?
Yeah, that's a great question. And no, so this is actually a relatively new development. President Eisenhower in 1956, of course, forced Israel and its then partners, the UK and France, to pull back from an effort to take the Sinai. Even as recently as President George W. Bush, there was the use of leverage to press Israel to pause settlement expansion in the West Bank. And now, interestingly, we see President Trump doing some of what President Biden was unwilling to do, at least in terms of speaking about the leverage that the U.S. has with its security assistance and arms transfers. So this is a relatively novel moment in American history, and it's not, or in American-Israeli relations, and it's one that I hope we can move out of, because it's not in either nation's interest.
Tariq, just before we go, I know you've got family in the area. I hope everybody's hanging in.
Yeah, I mean, as we see, like just in the last week, there's effort to formally annex the West Bank, right? This is not going away as an issue, despite whatever the Trump administration wants to say that they have achieved peace. I think we are hanging on by a thread. And I think there's a lot still at stake, including the safety and security for Palestinian people, not just in Gaza, but also now in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, as we see these settlements try and expand both in a de facto way that they have been for years, but now also even formally. And is the Trump administration going to do what is necessary to ensure that the Palestinian people have a piece of a just and lasting peace, or are they going to be forced out of their homes? Are they going to experience some of this violent settler action that has been expanding more and more over the last few weeks and months?
We thank you both for being with us. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Josh Paul and Tariq Habash, two former Biden administration officials who resigned over Biden's handling of the war in Gaza. They joined together to co-found a new policy, a lobbying group and political action committee aimed at reforming American policy in the Middle East. Josh Paul will be participating in a panel at the New England School of Law at 154 Stewart Street tomorrow at 5:30. We want to thank them both. Of course, this is about this whole situation. Coming up after...
and the website, anewpolicy.org, if people are interested in checking out.
anewpolicy.org. Yeah. Thank you. Coming up after this quick break, it is time for our Two More Things segment. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Fire can be a good thing for ecosystems, and last year's brush fires in Blue Hills have created a unique opportunity to see how life recovers.
I have found previously undocumented endangered plant species growing in the burned areas of Hoden's Hill.
hopefully be nice to see some birds out there since I like the bird.
I'm Hannah Riali. That story later today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Paquin Entertainment Group, presenting Moonwalkers, a 360-degree immersive experience narrated by Tom Hanks, featuring NASA footage, astronaut interviews, and more. Now open. Tickets at moonwalkersboston.com.
And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Hamilton. Written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton is the story of America then, told by America now. Hamilton is in Boston through November 2nd. More at lexusbroadwayinboston.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Not at the library the next couple of days. We'll let you know as soon as we know. It's time for two more things. Marjorie, you're one more thing.
Well, people know that the Washington Post may be in big trouble ever since Jeff Bezos decided to knuckle under to Donald Trump. They didn't endorse Kamala Harris as they had planned to. Well, now our favorite columnist, Margaret Sullivan, is saying the Washington Post shamelessly defends Trump's odious ballroom. And she talks about the fact that this editorial page, which seems to be knuckling under big time, went on and on about how the taking down the East Wing of the White House was really, paid tribute to Trump's appeal. You said it was wonderful, and those who were disgusted by the destruction to build the ballroom should realize that what this really is the actions of a lifelong builder, boldly pursuing a grand vision, unafraid to take on the status quo, slashing through red tape, et cetera, et cetera. Margaret Sullivan points out that the news section of the Post, for the most part, is still in great shape, but she thinks that the editorial section is a lost cause. And she, of course, points out that Jeff Bezos is among the donors to the odious ballroom that is going to replace the East Wing.
Did they disclose that in the piece? No.
No, they did not.
How
that
can
is
they
a
not
very good point.
Dan Shaughnessy, every time he writes an article about the Red Sox, mentions John Henry owns the Red Sox, but they don't think it's important enough to say that Bezos contributed to the building.
That's her point. It's a lost cause. They've knuckled under, and I hope that the guy who runs CNN is not about to knuckle under. He may be next.
I think you're right. So do you remember when Trump was going to meet again with Putin? I think you do, in Hungary. Do you remember this?
I do.
About Ukraine, and it didn't happen. Well, here's a text exchange. This is real. Between Carolyn Levitt, who is the sort of the Baghdad Bob of the administration, and a Huffington Post White House reporter. I'm going to mispronounce the name, and I apologize. S.V. Date, I believe. Now, we're going to do a little acting out of this. This is a text exchange verbatim, and it was posted by Levitt herself, so it must be true. You're going to play the part of the reporter.
That's right.
I'm going to play the part of Carolyn Levitt. You start.
The reporter's a guy, but I'll do my best.
Okay, good.
Is the president aware of the significance of Budapest? In 1994, Russia promised in Budapest not to invade Ukraine if it gave up the nuclear weapons it inherited when the Soviet Union dissolved. Does he not see why Ukraine might object to that site? Who suggested Budapest? Thanks.
Your mom did.
Is this funny to you?
It's funny to me that you actually consider yourself a meaning journalist. You are a far-left hack who nobody takes seriously, including your colleagues in the media. They just don't tell you that to your face. Stop texting me your disingenuous, biased, and BS questions. And to the credit of this responsible reporter, meaning you, he writes back to her, feel better now? Now, can you answer the question, please, and thank you? By the way, this alleged left-wing hack being branded that by the ultimate hack, Levitt, has worked for NPR, the Associated Press. The reason I mention this is the following. Do you know what all the reporters did when the Secretary of War, as he calls himself, had these ridiculous conditions? Except for the reporters from My Pillow Network, or whatever that guy's name is, and they walked out. Tell me why the reporters who go to press conferences with Levitt or with Trump do not just walk out. There is the only thing in the world, Marjorie, that Trump cares more about than money is what? Attention.
Attention.
And if they walked out on this guy, maybe he might treat them like decent, hardworking, responsible people. It's
I don't know
disgusting.
why you're worried. I'm sure that Mr. MyPillow's reporters, you all know he wrote the famous bestseller From Crack Addict to CEO. I'm sure they'll do a fine job.
No, you actually know who wrote that?
Who wrote it?
Your mom wrote that. Can you imagine? Okay, thank you for the second time.
Okay, we're out of time. Right after the new news, Reverends Irene, Monroe, and Emmett G. Price are joined for another edition of All Revved Up. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. This is BPR 89.7 GBH.
make a lasting impact on the station that has provided local news and conversations throughout the years by naming GBH in your estate plans. Find out more online at gbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering teen and adult recreational cooking and baking workshops, series, and cooking couples classes for culinary enthusiasts. CambridgeCulinary.com. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR. We're checking on all things moral and spiritual with the Revs, Irene, Monroe, and O.G. Price III, to talk about pastors showing up at No Kings rallies and a lot of religious leaders at ICE arrests, plus a new survey that finds more U.S. adults are embracing organized religion.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then Halloween is still 4 days away, but how many of us can keep our hands off the candy stash that's right in front of us? Have you already opened the Kit Kats and Reese's? Are you saving money by avoiding chocolate bars, which are so expensive this year, and just going for the straight sugar, candy corn, or Sour Patch Kids? It's Halloween candy and you. Give us a call or text next. The third hour of BPR, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The federal government shutdown continued to disrupt flights across the country over the weekend. NPR's Joel Rose reports air traffic controllers are set to receive no money on payday this week.
The Federal Aviation Administration said staffing shortages delayed planes headed to Los Angeles, Washington, Chicago, and Newark, New Jersey on Sunday. Staffing shortages were reported at more than 20 FAA facilities around the country over the weekend. Here's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy speaking to Fox News on Sunday.
That's a sign that the controllers are wearing thin.
Air traffic controllers are required to work without pay during the government shutdown. Their union says some are taking on second jobs, driving for Uber and DoorDash to make ends meet. Controllers are set to receive no money when payday officially arrives on Tuesday. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
As Hurricane Melissa barrels toward Jamaica, authorities have ordered evacuations in several areas, urging residents to seek immediate shelter. Forecasters say the storm, now a Category 5, could be among the most powerful ever to hit the island. It now has top sustained winds of 165 miles per hour. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns a deluge could trigger catastrophic flooding across parts of Jamaica. Reporter Nick Davis is there.
The storm has slowly been moving along the south coast at between 3 and 7 miles an hour for about a day, only about 100 miles out, but it's due to turn inland tonight, bringing record levels of rainfall, up to 30 inches, so with that extensive flooding. This storm is huge. It'll cover the island with major hurricane conditions, and so the government has put in place a mandatory evacuation order in some low-lying areas. Hurricane Melissa is expected to make landfall in the early hours of tomorrow morning and be here for almost 12 hours before it leaves. For NPR News, I'm Nick Davis in Jamaica.
The search for the bodies of the remaining Israeli hostages continues in Gaza, as reports of Israel's military striking Palestinians inside Gaza threaten the 2-week-old ceasefire. NPR's Rob Schmitz reports.
Over the weekend, Israel allowed a search and rescue team from Egypt to enter Gaza to search for the bodies of the 13 remaining hostages. According to an official who spoke to NPR but not authorized to speak publicly about the matter, Israel also allowed members of Hamas to cross the so-called yellow line into Israeli-held territory to assist in the search for the deceased hostages. Gaza's civil defense reports that Israel's military struck a group of Palestinian civilians who had returned to their homes near Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, killing 2 and injuring 3. Over the weekend, Israel's military said it carried out a targeted strike in central Gaza on a member of the Islamic Jihad militant group, injuring 4 people in a car. Both attacks appear to be testing the U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new survey shows that half of State House staffers plan to leave their jobs within the next 2 years. Why? Well, because 8 in 10 of those surveyed say they're underpaid and unsatisfied with their current position. The survey was conducted by a group of staffers who want to unionize despite state law that forbids them to do so. The results, which were shared exclusively with the Globe, are very similar to the results of a survey from last year. The survey, which polled 152 staffers out of the legislature's roughly 800-person workforce during May, June, and July, comes ahead of a hearing this week on legislation that would allow them to unionize. And the board of directors for Harvard University's conservative publication Salient have announced on that it's suspending the magazine's operations. The Crimson reports the suspension comes after the magazine published material that the board deemed reprehensible, abusive, and demeaning. The 10-member board filed a brief that says they received deeply disturbing and credible complaints about the broader culture of the Salient organization, and the suspension is effective immediately and pending their review. And while the statement did not refer to specific articles or provide details about the complaints, the magazine did publish an article in its September issue that included a quote very similar to one that was used by Adolf Hitler in 1939. 52 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their dining and entertainment card, Savor. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Eastern Brownie. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. For the texter who wants to know how to go back, rewind the conversation, you can do it at youtube.com/GBH News if you had to run out and take a quick
that's
call.
Very nice of you to tell.
Yes, well, I want someone to know because they were concerned about why they can't go back and pause the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can on YouTube. Anyway, a couple of programming notes. We're not going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll keep you posted on when we go back. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, is going to be with us for another edition of Ask the AG from 11 to 12 on November 4th. And the famed legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma is going to be with us and perform November 19th.
It's also one of the nicest, most accessible geniuses of all
And tomorrow,
time.
the former mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, is going to join us to talk about the mayor's race in New York City. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. It's time now for All Rev'd Up on BPR with the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett G. Price III. Irene's a syndicated religion columnist in the Boston Voice for Detour's African-American Heritage Trail and a steward of St. Augustine's African Orthodox Church in Cambridge, the last remaining Garvey Church of Greater Boston. Emmett is a founding pastor of the Community of Love Christian Fellowship in Allston, inaugural Dean of Africana Studies at Berklee College of Music. Welcome to you both. Hey there.
Hey, thanks for having us back.
Good to see you.
So it's great to see USA Today piece talked about this too, that there's a lot of faith leaders, pastors, imams, rabbis, priests, ministers, all out at these protests about immigration. What do you think, Emmett? We're happy to see that, right?
I'm happy to see that. I happened to be out at the Common, a couple weeks ago for the No Kings, protests. And what I'm not happy about is that it used to be a day and age where clergy were kind of immune to the violence and not getting hit in the head with pepper balls and pepper spray and all the things. So it's just a clear indication that the day not only has changed, but the respect for clergy has kind of devalued, as it were, again. So, I mean, people need to be able to say what they need to say, but, I don't see clergy out there stimulating or encouraging violence. Yeah. So to have violent acts against us is just not right.
Just one quick question as an aside. Since you're a music guy, you were there at the rally.
Don't do this again.
I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump, but Trump has great playlists at his rally. Could have got us all psyched up. You know what I mean? We could have used a psych up the crowd playlist at that rally. What do you think, Emmett?
Well, I mean, the rap, and I will say this, Marjorie, that probably 90% of the participants were non-melanated.
Very white.
That's right. So I think, cultural tastes we have a diversity of cultural tastes, and it didn't necessarily work for me, but it may have worked for somebody.
Marjorie also doesn't think the appetizers were exactly what they should have been. By the way, it was not just for those. Before we go to Irene, for those who have seen endlessly the pepper ball hitting the head of one a minister or pastor.
Oh, yeah.
There actually were 2 incidents where it happened. Just one was not videoed. Irene, what's your take on the turnout from the faith community at these things?
Well, there are 2 things. One, I agree with Emmett. It was very lily white. We need to say that and put that front and center.
And but they've all been the ones. The one in June was too.
Yeah, they have been, and it also, in terms of age, it really has to me, and I could just have a skewed view, but it's not like I surveyed everyone, but it looked like it skewed more towards baby boomers than millennials and younger generations. But I do need to say this here, and about clergy, no, you shouldn't attack anyone. I think one of the problems is if you put religion sit in front in this whole sort of movement here, it creates a problem, because, as I've always said, that we're people of faith and people of no faith, and with Trump's group, religion matters only when it's really not about religion. So I think that what we're trying to do here, and I need to say this as someone that's on the left, that our rallying call is for a pluralistic and multicultural democracy. But I need to bring something up to attention. It's worth reading. Yesterday, in yesterday's Globe, there was an article by Elizabeth McKenna, and she said this, which I thought was very insightful. She said that, and this is the title of the piece, she says, the left knows how to have a huge protest. The right knows how to win elections. And I thought that was very, very key, because one of the things I thought about when I think about the No King's March here is that we're not moving towards transformative solidarity. What you see out there is transactional solidarity. So for many, it seems performative. What Elizabeth McKenna says in this article, we must learn how to have those difficult conversations and know how to organize. So what we saw last Saturday seems only temporary exchange, because even among the folks that are there, even though we are of like-minded, we don't want a king reigning over us, that the diversity, even among that group, even among that homogeneous group, we still can't seem to organize and congeal and move forward.
By the way, I think we're on the same page with that. The critical issue is what you do in between these huge rallies, because all you got to do is sort of duck your head down for a day, and if there's not a follow-up day and a follow-up day. But I want to get back to your original point, Emmett, about who was not there for a second. Marjorie and I talked to a number of people in advance about, and we talked among ourselves, between ourselves. Between ourselves, thank you. That's why Marjorie's here, the grammar queen. About the understanding that despite the unlikelihood that ICE would show up, because they generally don't show up at large events, it's understandable why Latinos would be anxious about appearing at a major moment like this. Why do you think there was such poor turnout from Black Americans, Emmett G. Price III?
Well, in many ways, and I'm not sure if this is universal, but we did our protest back at the election. We pretty much said, this is not the guy. Don't elect. And so it's like, okay, I'm not sure if the protesters, at the No Kings had buyer's remorse, or if these were folks who may have, wanted to no longer be seen in the camps of, the MAGA, folks and the Trump folks. But, for a good majority of Black people, this was not our moment.
How about that? In all fairness, though, I don't think most of the up to 7 million people were having buyer's remorse. I don't think most of them voted for Donald Trump. Irene, what's your explanation of why the turnout was poor?
I differ with Emmett on this for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a fallacious notion to say that because of ICE, Black people didn't show up, because we are also Black Hispanic. I mean, and Black. So that there's the overlapping of identities here. I think that what happens here when you say, well, we've showed up, meaning Black folks have showed up, it fits into a mega paradigm of divide and conquer. So that's the point that I'm concerned about, that we don't have a kind of transformative solidarity here among ourselves. So that march seems performative, because if Blacks are not showing up, which was very clear the last 3 marches actually, then the question that needs to be done on the ground is find out why we are not showing up, how to get us there. So if you're saying policing is a problem, then address that issue so that those Blacks, young and old, that wants to come. And then something as simple as music. Yeah, listen, I prefer a much more soulful jazz, hip hop playlist. So my point is that even the grotty stuff, the little stuff that would move us towards a kind of solidarity is not there, even among all of us who are of a like-minded, don't want a king, reigning the country.
I'm talking to the Revs.
I thought it was I was kind of surprised to learn that the Turning Point movement is going to predominantly African American colleges and universities to try to sell the what Charlie Kirk was talking about. Emmett didn't always get a great welcome, but they were showing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because back in the day with this Blexit movement, the head person was actually Candace Owens, right? Yeah. Who is, kind of disappeared from the scene, particularly once that Blexit movement and Turning Point merged, under the leadership of Charlie Kirk, and it moved into a place for dialogue, into a place where that white supremacist, ideological, Christian nationalistic premise and praxis was in play. And so, they can go wherever they want to. I mean, it's a free institution, but I think we all saw that they didn't stay long. No. And they didn't go deep, right? I mean, and so, couldn't. Couldn't. I mean, as the kids say, and I'm not going to say what this acronym is, but the kids have a saying, FAFO.
That's right. Right. Go ahead. That's right. But what I appreciate is this here. The college, certain HBCUs allow them to come because the whole idea of colleges is a marketplace of ideas. Free speech is allowed here. Clearly, there wasn't going to be a ruckus because they're just outnumbered. I think what we get to see, and also a lot of the HBCUs, in response to Charlie Kirk's assassination, there was high security. So it's not, and it's another thing is this here. It's while we're not a monolith as people of the African diaspora, we do have some that are in the MAGA movement, okay, and they do come from, and we got Black Republicans, not like Clarence Thomas, but we do have them, okay, and we honor that tradition of those Black Republicans. So I thought it was a good idea. It's a learning idea. It's a good idea publicly and also publicly and visually for media to see and people to see. Yes, here they come to a Black college and there wasn't a riot. Yeah. There wasn't violence, because the whole idea that if you get black kids together, young kids together, it's going to be a riot. So they let these bigots come, make their peace, and then let them go.
What's interesting and very important to point out, though, for our listeners, is the reason that Howard University is a historically Black, college and university, HBCU, is because back in the day when it was founded, Black students were not allowed at white institutions. That's right. And so many of these HBCUs were founded in Black church basements, funded by Black people, and eventually then they got land grants from the federal government and became institutions of higher learning, and very prestigious ones. So I say that for our listeners because, again, there's a movement now saying, why are all the Black kids sitting at the cafeteria table? Like Beverly Tatum's book. but it's because we were not allowed in previous institutions, and that sentiment lasted for generations and generations. So it's not an easy fix to say that you all can come now, so why don't you?
Yeah, and also that sentiment resonates today. I mean, when we see here, when you take DEI off the table for these particularly prestigious white universities, we have just reinscribed the very, malignant paradigm that we very much have tried to transform. So I think that what I do see, and I say this about Black churches, historically Black colleges and Black museums, we know how to preserve. We know how to persevere. What you see when Emmett, and this is another time I'm going to extrapolate. I'm not going to speak for you. But when Emmett says here, "Oh, we've done our time," I read that when I hear people say, "We know how to do this." Had you followed our lead, had you joined in on those marches back in the day, and listen, not too far in the day, let's go to 2020 and move forward, meaning with George Floyd's assassination, we might not be here where we are today.
Well, in all fairness, though, but after George Floyd, I think there was a pretty broad response that was
formative.
What? You think it was performative?
Absolutely.
No, I think it was Wait, when it comes, if I may, I think we've discussed this a lot, maybe not with you, I'm not sure. The corporate leaders, many of whom pretended they all of a sudden cared about these issues and then used the first opportunity to back out. I agree with you there, with some notable exceptions. I think real people deeply cared about this, Irene. You don't think so? Well beyond African Americans, you don't?
No. Even in Cambridge here, we have a woman that is running who says, that she was very glad that now we can listen to white folks. Okay, and I'm using Cambridge because Cambridge is known to be a progressive city.
I heard that. I heard it was, yes.
That's right. You heard that. So my point is that even our progressives are saying, finally, white people can speak up and speak their mind unfiltered. So no, not at all. It's performative, and we're not. And so when you don't see us, particularly in white towns like Boston, it's an intentionality along with
Boston is a majority-minority city, by the way. It's not a white town.
Well, listen, when you're talking about downtown Boston, who shows up and who has and who that town, those attractions are built for or meant for, it attracts white people.
Speaking of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, which was the introduction to what happened at Howard, I'm particularly fascinated with really young people who develop huge followings. And I never heard of this Christian podcaster, Allie Beth Stuckey, who I think is also in her 30s, as Kirk was. I think Kirk was 31. She may be 33 or something. Here she is, just to give you a taste if you haven't heard of her, talking about Halloween in a reel on her Instagram. She is.
Christians use every opportunity to glorify God and to advance his gospel and disciple his children. And I believe that there is a way to do that on Halloween. It is such a rare opportunity that we have to get all of these people, many of them not Christians, showing up to our front door and taking something from us. So how can we use trick-or-treating to our advantage?
I have no idea what she's talking about, but okay.
You guys are ministers. How do we use trick-or-treating to our advantage? Do we give them little mini Bibles, or do we say Hail Mary, or
what's
bless
the deal
them?
with this woman also? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fascinating that we have so many, podcast ministers who are building phenomenal reach and influence. I mean, kudos to her for doing things that, many of us are trying to figure it out in this new hybrid digital space. The challenge is that what happens is when you cater to a culture, and so here we hear her catering to the cultural phenom of Halloween, which is not a Christian situation, but she also caters situation. She also caters to the sense of the dangers of empathy, which is a Christian situation. So the conflation of the confusion to, kind of appease everyday people so that they don't have to move into a space of doing things that are different than they're already doing. That's dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with Emmett, but I need to course correct the history here. Halloween, and ask any of us, It's a gay holiday. It has always been.
It is?
It is a nationally, no, it is. It is nationally known that Halloween is a gay holiday.
It's not nationally known by me. What did I miss?
Me either.
Okay, well, but the point is, you're a cisgendered male, but you got to come over on our side.
Wait, tell me about the gay history here.
It has always been, because it's a time that gay people could come out in costume and be themselves under the guise of Halloween. It has always been. It's like the underground. It's like being on the down low. We know this. It has always been a gay holiday, and it allowed listen, Jim, it allows straight cisgendered men like you to wear. If you want to do drag that day, you can. Okay.
I can. Okay.
That is your closeted proclivity. That is the day that your hobby can come out.
Thank you. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
All right, Emmett, she's talking to you too, I think, but that's okay.
He's come out. come out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that either. What is it? All is it the All Souls Day? Then the next day or something is the All Saints or something like that.
It is.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's All Souls. Ghosts. Right.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping that in Halloween, that what they will say is that Black people, Mexican people are not a costume. Okay. So don't dress up as they had Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, with a sombrero and maybe something else I don't recall. Okay, and don't go in blackface. That's the message they need to say in honor of, we are a Christian nation, because it's about love. If we're going to talk about Christ, it's about love and acceptance of all people. But all I just got to say is, Jim, get your wig on, and walk the streets of Cambridge.
I'll be knocking on your door, my friend, as you well know.
I got a treat and a trick for you.
Okay.
Hey, before you go, can I ask one last quick thing? Is that we're reading a Pew Center poll, and I find them to be amongst the most reliable, non-politically driven. Well, that's not fair. A lot of the polls are good, but I think theirs are good. Saying the embrace of organized religion. Still not over. Why you're going to
because I think
it right
away? What religion are we talking about? I mean, they said that a lot
it's
of
on
things.
The increase.
They're talking about Judaism, Islam.
Well, you think it's a big nothing?
Well, I think if I don't see that the Christian nationalists are anything about religion really, since they're kind of ignoring everything that the Bible. So if it's growing in the Turning Point USA kind of mode, that makes me nervous. If it's growing in the social justice mode, that's a different thing.
You got 30 seconds, Irene.
It also said this, if you went down the article, it says here that when you look at it in terms of race, and you look at it in terms of Black Christian versus white Christians, that religion has become a bad influence and a pox on liberation theology. So Marjorie, kudos, right on.
Yeah. We don't know what it means.
And Jim just used this as a deterrent because I called it out.
Yeah. By the way, when I get to your door, no Raisinets, okay? Reese's Cups and Snickers, no Raisinets, okay?
I have liverwurst for you. I have liverwurst in a tube for you.
By the way, can you imagine little mini liverwursts? Oh, right. I'll be there, my friend.
I think he'd look cute in a little wig, don't you think? What color?
Absolutely.
What color is your wig?
I'm going as a bee this year.
He's going as a bee. Oh, he's going as a bumblebee.
I'm going as a bumblebee.
Oh, you should go as Big Bird.
Okay, I am Big Bird. Goodbye, you two. It's great to see you. I know Emmett has my reaction, head in hand. Thank you very much. Goodbye, you two.
Okay, we've been speaking with the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett G. Price III. Irene is a syndicated religion columnist and steward of St. Augustine's African Orthodox Church in Cambridge. Emmett is founding pastor of the Community of Love Christian Fellowship in Austin, inaugural dean of Africana Studies at Berklee College of Music as well. Okay, coming up after this quick break, Halloween candy and you. Trick-or-treating begins Friday. There's plenty to talk about in preparation. To start, have you seen the price of chocolates? They have gone up a lot, Jim. $20 for a bag of Butterfingers. Doesn't even have the normal amount of chocolate. They're skimping on the chocolate this year, too, because it's so expensive. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Generous paid family leave is common in European countries like Finland. Despite this and other government support for new parents, birth rates across Europe remain low, leaving researchers puzzled.
So we cannot really
any longer say that it's our good family policies that explain good fertility in the Nordics.
The rising norm of smaller families on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Silligrams, a Boston area manufacturer working with businesses to create custom silicone products for corporate gifts and branded merchandise. Learn about their monogrammed ice trays and more online at silligrams.com. And Moderna. mNEXSpike COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA, by Moderna is available. More information about mNEXSpike is available from pharmacists and medical providers.
Back to BPR, Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Once again, no library tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll tell you when we're back as soon as we know. By the way, we stream at the library even when we're not here. So if you're into the library or the Newsfeed Cafe, you can hang out there and watch us on the monitors. In November, AG, November 4th, the mayor, November 18th. The governor skipped us in October, and we're not having an easy time scheduling November. We don't know what's going on. We'll let you know. And Bill de Blasio, former mayor of New York City, graduate of Cambridge, Rindge, and Latin High School, will be our guest tomorrow at 11 o'clock, talk about the incredibly important, in my opinion, I think Marjorie's too, New York City mayor's race. So with just 5 days to go, we're going to do a lot of shows on this, as I know you know. We wanted to take a few moments at the end of the show to talk about something else that is thinning the layers of chocolate in the nation's candy bars this year. Listen to these statistics. The average price of candy, how much do you think it's gone up over the last 5 years?
I don't know.
78%. Candy in general.
78%.
How much do you think cocoa has gone up in the last year alone, the price of cocoa?
A lot. That's why.
29%.
That's why they're taking less chocolate, I should say.
Thank you very much.
In the candy.
Okay, good. This is great news for anybody who loves like sour, gummy candy. But for anyone over 30, it's undeniably bad news. We're opening phone and text lines. Talk about Halloween candy at 877-301-8970. Do you care that kids this year are most likely getting the cheap stuff? Or if it's chocolate, you know what it is? Shrunken size, shrinkification, or less chocolate content. And this is the one that we mentioned the other day that I can't get over. If you bought your chocolate stash, as I have you bought your candy yet? Of course
I have not.
Early in hopes of avoiding high prices, are you among the apparent, this is a poll, a majority of Americans say they eat through their candy stash at least 2 full times before the little kids even schlep to your front door for trick-or-treat. Let me repeat that. A majority of Americans say they buy their Halloween candy, they eat it not once in toto, but twice, and then have to go out and buy it a third time before Halloween arrives. Halloween candy and you, 877-301-8970.
But the other thing about everybody shoving down their Halloween candy long before Halloween, CVS Pharmacy, which sells a lot of candy, I guess they went out and asked for the research to be done, because apparently people go to CVS, they buy the big bags of Butterfingers or whatever, and then they come back
and buy them again
3 or 4 times before Halloween.
I eat a lot of candy only at Halloween. I don't eat candy essentially all year long, unless it's pushed in my face.
No.
Can you imagine having, like, what if you have 200 little candy bars, minis,
a lot to
and
eat.
Eating 200 mini candy bars?
But
Who
the
does
dentists
this?
say if you're going to eat all that candy, better to eat it all at once, and then you can brush your teeth after it's done, as opposed to be eating.
Is that a surprise to you?
Well, I mean, I sometimes eat chocolate at night, but I don't immediately go rush and brush my teeth.
You don't brush your teeth after you eat chocolate?
Well, not 5 minutes later. No.
You don't?
You don't. I mean, can I enjoy the choice of the chocolate and the taste of the chocolate in my mouth?
I think you should be brushing while you're eating. You take a bite, you brush a little.
Kind of ruins the taste. You know what I mean?
877-301-8970. Are you noticing the diminution in chocolate content? Is it upsetting to you? Are you purposely choosing to buy the crap candy that doesn't have chocolate in it because of the price differential? 78% increase overall, not just chocolate over 5 years, 29% chocolate alone in 1 year. And the candy bars, by the way, this I noticed even before I read the article.
They're shrunk.
They're smaller.
They're shrunk.
They're smaller. And that's the way they're fooling us if they don't dramatically increase
and
the
by the
price.
way, apparently because of the tariffs, China, Vietnam, Mexico, Taiwan, all these places that make it part or all of people's costumes and decorations and Halloween fun stuff, they've gone up so much that the whole holiday is much more expensive. The costumes, the candy, the decorations.
What are you going as?
Well, I've not made up my mind, Jim, about my costume, but I think you would look cute in a little big
bee outfit. A little bee outfit.
And our staff put candy corn in some. I mean, I can't eat candy corn.
I can't even eat one.
Yeah, and it's not going to cut it. I mean, I think you're just going to pay more for the chocolate. Don't you want chocolate?
No, but it's small. It's also small, and kids notice those kinds of things, don't you know? And don't you resent? Do you resent? Well, of course, if they cost a lot more, I guess I shouldn't resent it. 877-301-8970. Now, while we're interested in talking to any of you with any perspective on candy, we will do what we almost never do: is take people out of order who fall into the category of those who have eaten their stash not once, not twice, but 3 times before Halloween comes.
You know, a texter reminds us of the marshmallow Butterfinger. Supposedly they're putting less chocolate.
Oh, this year we talked about that, yeah.
And he or she, I don't know who it is.
What, instead of chocolate, or so there's less chocolate?
They said this is really going too far.
No, it really is. Do you like Butterfingers?
I love Butterfingers.
I love Butterfingers.
They're really good.
Love Butterfingers.
My stash is the same every year because I figure whatever the kids don't take will be left over.
And what is that? I don't even know what's in it.
Butterfingers.
Yeah.
Butterfingers and Reese's.
Not little Milky Ways you put in the freezer and then almost crack your teeth on?
I'm not big on Milky Ways.
Frozen Milky Way?
Butterfingers and Reese's. That's what I get. And I do not eat it 3 times before Halloween.
Yeah.
Of course, I have my stash of lint balls, my favorite candy across the street from the library. They sell
You eat lint balls?
Not L-I-N-D-T.
Oh, lint balls.
Yes. They're the wonderful chocolate manufacturer that has a store right across the street from the Boston
By the way,
Public
if
Library.
you want a treat before Christmas.
I have a discount card there.
This is not Halloween. She does have a discount. I went with her once, help her carry. No one has ever bought more lint balls right ahead of Christmas than you.
And the thing that's great about them is, unlike if you get them at CVS, I'm sorry,
don't
CVS.
Say how they're fresh.
Or Staples.
They're not fresh.
Are. Yes, they are. Plus, there's a million flavors. You get to pick your own flavors.
You know what they have this year? Chocolate-free chocolate lint balls. Do you know that? No chocolate. No, it's... We're in a car. We're talking about Halloween candy and the crisis that is right before us.
This
Hello.
is the first texter.
Wait, Rhonda, do your thing and then we'll read it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
The first texter. I'm sorry, Rhonda, to interrupt you.
Hi.
The first texter says, I ate 3/4 of the bag and threw it away so I wouldn't eat it all. I bought another bag and I did the same thing.
That's what we're looking for. Call us. Rhonda, what's up?
You're in a call. Oh, I'm turning down my radio. Yeah, so every year I buy the large candy bars, the full size.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. I get several flavor profiles so everybody gets what they want.
Great.
And last year, I only had like 10 kids show up. And I had something like, 50 full-size candy bars.
Hope you ate them.
Or more. No. I tried to give as much away as I could, but some actually stayed on top of my refrigerator, I'm ashamed to say. And I went to pull a...
Oh,
we lost her. We
lost everybody.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
I'll read some text.
It'd be shocking if the phones failed, wouldn't it? That
Sarah
never
from
happens.
Worcester is really upset about a lack of diversity, Jim.
What do you mean?
In our Halloween
Tell
candy. She said it's all the same. How sad the kids never have that diversity. Where are the Mary Janes? Where are the wax lips?
I hate wax
Remember
lips.
those?
I hate them.
Where are the Necco wafers?
I have Necco wafers.
Do you get them for Halloween?
I don't know if I have them now. What is a Mary Jane? Is that the thing where you break your teeth on? It's like that rock hard. What's a Mary Jane?
I don't even know what a Mary Jane
now,
is.
here's Luke in Auburn as the calls hopefully come back here. I believe my parents and I are on our 6th or so purchase. This can't be true. But the guy signed his name. Luke, of Halloween candy this month. Sure, up until last year, we had a total of 0 trick-or-treaters, but we still use the chance as a reason to buy more. In all seriousness, I can't even fathom the concept. I mean, when you buy candy, you buy an immense amount of candy, don't you?
I do.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. And then you can eat the whole thing?
Well, yeah. Well, what happens usually is I have to leave or go with my kids or now my grandchildren to go trick-or-treating. So I leave a bowl on the front porch and there's never anything left. Never anything left. It's all gone.
Don't worry, by the way, for those who are upset because we're not dealing with our legendary issue of how tall is too tall and how old is too old to be trick-or-treating, believe me, we're getting to it. We're not today, but we will get to it.
Yeah, you can't be 6'3" at the door.
No,
that's my cutoff. 6 feet, maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
you're just a little bit tall for 7th grade, but when you get up there over 6 feet, I mean, come on. Okay, we're going to try Steve from Somerville one more time.
Hi, Steve in Somerville. Hello.
Hey, Jim.
Hi.
The trick is to buy the candy you don't like. Okay, that way you don't eat it all before Halloween.
That's brilliant.
Then you buy the 5-pound candy bar, the giant one. You give to the kid with the best costume. One year, nobody showed up at my house. I ended up eating the thing. It took me 3 months to eat it all.
You are a strategic man there,
Okay.
Steve.
Now, Steve, just let me ask you a question. Since Jim is accusing me of malfeasance because I don't rush upstairs and brush my teeth after, do you have an interim period where you let the taste of the candy linger in your mouth before you go rush up and brush your teeth? Or do you just brush them right away?
No, you linger. You got to let it linger.
You got to linger.
Sometimes I don't brush it for days.
That's great. You're from Somerville, obviously, right?
What?
They will never forget. They will never forget in their entire life that they got a 5-pound candy bar for Halloween.
That
and
is
every
pretty
year,
cool.
You'll get more and more kids come to your house because they want that 5-pound candy bar.
Wait a second. Oh, I misunderstood you. A single candy bar that's 5
For
pounds?
the best costume. Isn't that what you said, Steve?
Yes, the giant one. It cost you like $65, but you know what? You made a kid's day.
$65?
Well, Steve is into the holiday season.
Yeah.
Steve, you're a real citizen of the something. Thank you, of Halloween.
Can we talk about the shaving cream? Can we teach them how to do the shaving cream?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I know it's... Oh, okay, you stick the needle in the edge of the shaving cream. You melt it. It makes a tiny little hole, and then that shaving cream will shoot about 25 feet.
Wow, you are an expert on all
really
things
know how to
Halloween.
live, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Somervillians, Jim, they know how to live it up over there in
Well, he said he
Somerville.
hasn't brushed his teeth in days, so he's got a lot of time to be doing this
in
thing.
Somerville, our texter says, so many people let it linger in their mouths.
You know, by the way, he has a pretty good idea. Because don't you often, even if you don't eat it all, you buy and then you say, I don't have enough, and you buy that.
I buy my favorites.
Well, except Steve's saying, buy stuff you don't like that much, but the kids like up front, so you're not going to eat it. And then the day before, you go get the stuff you do like. What about that?
I don't think everybody eats 3 or 4 bags of
They don't?
candy.
Majority do, apparently. They say they do, unless they're lying.
Okay.
Can I tell you one other thing?
What?
We're not doing an ad for Lindt chocolate. They're not paying us anything. But in addition to Lindt balls, which Marjorie really likes, they have those sheets of chocolate bark, whatever that means, or something. That is really easy.
Yeah, they're
amazing.
really delicious. I'm so glad we're right across the street from there. I can't wait till we're back at the library.
Listen to this.
My stash is diminished.
Sarah from Waltham. Eat it 2 to 3 times early. I still have my leftover Halloween candy from last year, and I'm wondering if I can give it out again this year. If it's too stale, how stale is too stale? That's actually an excellent
a good point.
question.
I think it lasts a long time.
Forever.
It's kind of like nuclear
I think forever,
waste.
roughly. It does.
Okay.
Do you remember, isn't there in the
they're
newsroom?
truffles, not Lindt balls. They are Lindt balls.
What is it? I don't know what truffle is.
Truffles, chocolate with like a softer inside.
Well, that's what a Lindt ball is.
Yeah, but I think that they are. Apparently they're not called Lindt balls. Oh well.
I think they are called Lindt balls.
I'm going to keep calling them Lindt balls.
Okay, let's take some calls. Where do you want to go?
Let's go to
Sue.
Oh, Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
Hi. I'm well, thanks. I'm not on a sugar high, so what I have to say is legit.
Okay.
I just want you to know that there's no reason for anyone to have an excuse about eating candy because you can freeze it interminably. It lasts for all eternity.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, there's no reason for eating too much or having to accurately guess how many Halloweeners will come to your door because just pull it out of the freezer, the number you need, put it back.
How much frozen candy do you have at the moment, Sue?
I don't freeze it. I eat it.
Oh, well, then how do you even know about freezing? You mean in the abstract?
Because, in the abstract. But I do know. I mean, I've looked it up. I've researched it. It's true. You can freeze it for just about ever.
We got it. That's an excellent point, by the way. Thank you very much for the call. there.
Jeff from Newport says he is not handing out candy. He's handing out juice boxes because he bought the really good candy and he's keeping it for himself.
Can I tell you something? The notion, when people have alternatives, kids want candy. Don't they want candy?
Well, he wants the candy. He's going to give him the juice boxes.
I understand that.
Amy and Grace in Wheelwright says she turns out all her lights and hides upstairs reading on her phone to avoid the neighborhood goblins.
Well, can I tell you, I've done that from time, not every year, but I've done it occasionally, very occasionally, very rarely. Mm-hmm. But when you do, you can't watch television. Because if you watch television with lights off, there's a blue hue of light coming out your window, and people know you're there. And the big kids really give you a hard time.
Yeah,
you know
so
what
your
I mean?
neighbors will be really mad.
We're getting away from the topic that began this.
What
Don't
is the
you
topic?
feel? I mean, the de-chocolification of Halloween is a real problem.
It's a big problem. Okay, the staff is showing me all these pictures. They call them truffles. I will continue to call them lint balls.
I didn't know that, by the way. I had no idea. I had no idea. Listen to this. Anonymous texter, her husband his husband, I don't know, has already gone through 2 bags of M&Ms. I had to roll them down the stairs. Not roll them, roll him, is what the texter is saying.
Well, I think candy is one of those things people have difficulty not, they want to keep eating it because it really gives
I don't have that, no.
No, you're a liverwurst kind of guy.
I am. Well, that person. How about Irene? The notion of little tiny tubes of liverwurst to give out. How excited would the kids be?
I don't know, Jim. I don't think most people have your passion for liverwurst.
If you give them a little squeezy little tube of liverwurst, you give them a little tiny red onion to take with it, and when they get home, they can squeeze it on a little piece of rye bread, toast it, a little bit of Dijon. No Dijon in this.
I think listen to this. This is from Merritt in Somerville. Frozen Milky Ways are good, but lint balls warm from the dryer are great.
Oh, that's funny. Tom from Lint, thank you. I gave out apples, small bags of salad, and toothbrushes. No one comes to my house anymore. By the way, do you remember years ago, we've told the story recently, Bill Weld, when he lived in Cambridge on Fairweather Street, they not only would give out apples, but this is so, talk about wholesome and all-American, would have apple bobbing.
Apple bobbing.
But you know what I realized about that?
It was during the time he was running against John Kerry for United States
John Kerry had to run home because they didn't have any...
Previously, the Lewisburg Square, where John Kerry lives, the maid in full uniform was handing out the candy.
So
that was the story. I think it was reported on BZ News. And then when the Kerrys heard about that, they
ran home.
They learned that the Wells were having bobbing apples in Fairweather Street, and the Kerrys had to rush home.
Let me ask you a question I've never thought about because we've only told that story about 800 times on the air.
It's one of my favorite stories.
How do you feel about sticking your head and bobbing for apples in a thing where someone else just stuck their head with their hair and whatever else bobbing for apples? They don't change the water. Is that not an issue?
I really haven't given that a
No,
whole
nor
lot
had
of
I
thought.
until just now. It's really horrible. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Really?
Jim.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
By the way, everybody is saying they call them truffles, not lint balls. I mean, that's really...
I spent 10 years buying them. I've probably bought thousands of lint balls at this particular juncture. I told you I have my discount card. I get a lot of discounts. But this is why nobody buys for apples anymore, because they're worried about the germs.
And one of our producers says no one bobs for apples. No one stomp grapes anymore for the same reason. Because think about it. If someone is stomping grapes, they're doing it in bare feet, right? And do you really want to drink the wine or the whatever that... I'm serious about that. Think about this for a minute.
I haven't thought about that much either.
No, there's very little grape stomping in my neighborhood. It used to be huge in Emmett Square. And now, well, it's also dangerous. Are you going to play that horrible sound? Okay, for the three listeners who have not heard that 10,000 times, these 2 women, one is a newscaster, I believe, is stomping grapes in a bucket. And I don't know if it's a newscaster or the grape stomping expert falls and really hurts herself. And the horrible thing is everybody laughs at it, including us, by the way. It was a newscaster. Thank you, John, and everybody.
Well, people don't like newscasters. People don't like members of the press.
Well, I don't think that's why they're laughing. Falling is one of the things. What was that show, Funniest Home Videos? All Funniest Home Videos was, for like 2 decades, is people falling down. That's all they did. They turn on the show, for 30 minutes, people trip and fall down, and then you go next week, and they fall and trip. It's the same thing every single week.
Yeah, but
Okay, and that's what people are laughing at. Exactly.
Alex from Ashburnham, thank you for calling.
We're actually talking about Halloween candy. I'm sorry.
Yes, we are.
Hi, Alex. Hello.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi.
Hi.
So we live on the Halloween street. The police shut it down on both sides.
Oh, my God.
All of the kids in town trick-or-treat on our street. So we get about 800 kids.
Oh!
Wow, that's a lot of money.
How do you feel about that?
How much do you spend?
So we spend around about $500 a year.
Oh!
And then the police supplement what we buy.
What do you mean?
With donations from around. So the cops will come out with donations from people from around town and give us more candy when we run out.
Oh, that's nice.
Now, but when you say you're the street, there are a lot of smaller cities and towns, particularly towns that have a street. Is that for safety reasons, or it's the most decorated? What's the deal?
So it's for safety reasons. All of the kids come trick-or-treat on one street. You don't have to worry about running kids over on anywhere else. It's a small town. There aren't a lot of street lights. So this is the safest way to keep all the kids visible.
Alex, let me ask you, and be honest about this. I know you will be. Do you have to be nice to each of the 800 kids, or just for the beginning of it? How long are you nice?
I love Halloween so much.
Oh.
I'm nice the whole night.
Wow. Well, that's pretty impressive. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I invite all my friends over. We have like 6 lines of people handing out candy, and I love it so much.
By the way, Alex, do us a favor. I mean this seriously. Can you send us a photo of this experience to bpr@wgbh.org after Halloween? We'd love to see your whole deal. bpr@wgbh.org. Good luck on Halloween. You're a gem.
Now,
how great is that woman?
That was a great call. Listen to this. This is an elaborate every year event. This texter says, I typically wait until the last minute to buy my Halloween candy so I don't gorge myself. However, this year I switched it up and I'm handing out packets of Oreos that I found at BJ's that come 6 cookies per pack.
Well, that's pretty good too.
Well, he says what he does though is he hides them in his boat, which has been put away in the garage for the season. I guess one of his kids found them anyway and ate through an entire 30-pack box. But he hides them someplace else.
I like it.
Of course, if you hide them and you know where they are, you're going to get them anyway, right?
You know, that's not called hiding if you know where they are, by the way. Hannah, who is a brilliant investigative colleague of ours, said, we have found sound evidence of Lint calling them balls, not truffles.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Life is a ball with Lint.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Life is a ball with Lint.
Life is a ball with Lint.
Are they calling it? They're not calling it lint like you get in the dryer.
No, they're calling it lint like you called lint.
All right.
It's a 2024
well, then
commercial.
I don't feel so bad calling them lint balls. Peter from Wenham, what do you think, Peter?
Hello, Peter.
Hi, hand of God, true story.
Yep.
Last year, after my 3rd round of buying chocolate, I finished the last of it on Halloween with not enough time to go out and get it. So I put an empty bowl. Out on the front porch with a note that says, "Please take one." So it looks like some greedy kid took everything.
Let me tell you, Peter, you are my hero. That is a beautiful call and a beautiful behavior. You are tremendous. But what are you doing this year? Have you eaten it all this year too, or what?
No, I was wiser this year. I was so ashamed that this year I'm waiting till the last minute.
So ashamed, he says. That is great. Every part of that was great, Peter. Thank you for the call. That was a good one, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a great one.
And the note is brilliant too.
And
Take one. So
this year he did it too late to get some more.
The whole thing is great.
Now, Matt from Winthrop says Reese's cups turn to sawdust when they get old. So you better freeze them.
I don't know if you can freeze that because there's content. You can freeze
it. You can freeze it. You can freeze it.
You've
I
ever
think
frozen
so.
it?
Peanut butter? You can freeze peanut butter.
Oh, you could. But let me tell you, the small little things, the Milky Ways, which you don't do, is not only can you freeze them not to keep them, you freeze them to eat them. And by the way, they are a little too hard when they're right out of the freezer. You put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
You with me or you're not?
I'm with you.
You put them in the freezer. You take them out. You leave them out on the counter for like 3 minutes. So there's just a slight softening. A soupçon of softening on the edges. And then you pop that baby in. And I'm telling you, it is heaven. That guy, Peter from Wenham, had 100 of them yesterday.
So your go-to for Halloween is going to be Butterfingers.
I like Butterfingers. I have to say, they're hard to find small.
Okay, Butterfingers.
Let me be honest with you about
Reese's,
that. No, not Reese's. My number one, Reese's are yours, and it's Reese's, not Reese's.
Reese's, whatever it is.
Drives me nuts. Okay, so you've been saying this forever. It's Reese's, I think. Anyway, what you do is my favorite, the little tiny Milky Ways.
Little tiny Milky Ways.
What do you think of that?
No, that's
great. Or Three Musketeers, by the way.
Three Musketeers.
Which I think are the same thing. I'm not quite sure.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
This is Joy from Marion says, I am a terrible person. We have 300 plus trick-or-treaters. I buy pencils with characters on them.
Oh, my God.
Occupational therapists and dentists love me.
You know what the neighbor downstairs when I lived in Germantown, which is not a suburb, but it's sort of the outskirts of Philadelphia. You know what the neighbor downstairs used to give out? A bowl of pennies. And you put your hand in a bowl of pennies, and you have a little tiny hand when you're like 4 or 5 or 6. You get like 12 pennies. I mean, really?
Now,
who wants 12 pennies?
There is the UNICEF dilemma.
Do
you get money?
Oh, I thought you were going to
and
tell
candy,
the story
or do you
again.
just get the money if you're going around? Jim stole from
Okay, so
UNICEF.
here's the deal with this, by the way. This is a true story. When I was a kid, one time, I admit it. Is it not good that I admit it? One year, I did steal the UNICEF money. I was like 7 or 8, and it was like $6 or something. And because I mentioned it to you, which was a big mistake, you mentioned it to your best friend, who was the PR person for UNICEF that year.
Right.
And on my television show on whatever it was, NECN,
yes.
What did I do? I presented a $100 huge check. Was admittedly with inflation. It was probably I made money on the deal to UNICEF to make up for the thievery. I bet you. I mean, you shouldn't steal. I know that's you don't have to say that. You shouldn't steal UNICEF money. We have time for one more quick one. Allison in Boston, take it away.
Hey there, happy Halloween. For Halloween, and we need to have about 4,000 pieces of candy on hand.
Oh my God!
Wait, do you really mean 4,000? You mean a lot?
No, I mean 4,000.
Oh my God!
So we needed to find a way to protect ourselves from eating way too much of that in advance.
So what do you do? Muzzle?
The solution is we get 50 pounds of Smarties.
Smarties?
You're just not tempted to eat more than like 3 of them. The kids love them. They can reach out and grab them. People are excited to have something that isn't chocolate, so it has worked really well for us.
What are they again? Are those little round disc things? What are they?
Yeah, they're the little round discs where you get a packet and there's like 15 of them.
Yeah, they're
in it. They're all
brutal.
different colors.
Little kids like those?
They love them.
Oh my
they're
God!
sour.
It's like
There's
sawdust
lots
with
of them.
flavoring. Well, Allison, that's where. Can you tell us your neighborhood just so we have a sense, or no?
It is Beacon Hill. The neighborhood goes all out,
Really?
and we have people from all over the city that come by. It's kind of like Back Bay, parts of the South End. There's some areas that just really decorate a lot, and it's super welcoming, and we just love it.
Well, Allison, good for you. You sound like wonderful neighbors, except for what you're giving out. Allison, thank you for the call. One of our colleagues said what Allison described as like worse Necco wafers. Necco wafers. You like what Necco wafers?
I don't particularly like.
You really
Necco
don't?
wafers. No.
What did you like getting when you were a kid?
I liked whatchamacallits.
Huh?
Whatchamacallits.
What would that be? This is Edgar B. Eric III, by the way.
Candy bar.
I don't know about
candy
that.
bar.
What is it?
It's just kind of like
Is it chocolate?
It's chocolate. It is
Oh, okay.
chocolate. Yeah, but I like gummy worms. Do you like gummy worms?
No, nobody likes gummy worms.
That is absolutely not true, Jim. People like gummy worms.
Edgar's got weird taste. Let's
No,
face it.
seriously. That is true.
Weird taste.
I mean, I'm not a huge candy person.
You're not?
What do you think about this, Edgar?
Go on.
This person says that put out little snack bags of Doritos, chips, goldfish.
I like that because I am more of a salty snack person. Let's bring some more salty snacks into the candy of Halloween. I love that
listener
idea.
suggests small tubes of liverwurst. What do you think of that as a possibility?
Is that the neighbors on either side of you? Make sure to
that's
stock up on those so
exactly
when
right.
you dress up and come
Okay.
over, they have them for you, Jim.
So what's on the culture show?
We got a good
Jared
culture.
get fired or something? What
No,
happened to him?
he's just taking a moment.
Okay,
taking a
good.
moment. No, we got a good show. We have this sort of regular series we've been doing called Sound Files, where we talk to an area musician about something on the National Recording Registry that they love. So we have Terry Lynn Carrington, Grammy Award-winning Medford native percussionist.
Knows very well.
And in an amazing flex, she chose a track that she actually plays on that is on the National Recording Registry. So that's fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be
So
fun.
we've got that. We're going to be talking about roller derby with one of the founders of, sort of not founders, but second generation roller derby people who wrote a memoir.
I love roller
So that's
derby.
great. And
I
then
really
we've
do
got
love it.
Bruins 365, a little hockey history.
Terrific.
Hockey history?
Hockey history.
Okay.
Hockey history. Okay. We're ready.
I went to one hockey game in college.
And what happened?
It was the team at my college, University of Pennsylvania, just formed a team. It played Cornell with Ken Dryden, the greatest goalie ever lived, playing for Cornell. You know what Penn lost by? 30-1 was the final score. Yes.
Wow.
Great story.
No.
Tell it on your show if I were you.
We'll do.
Okay.
Edgar, good luck.
Thank you, Edgar.
Edgar V. Herrick, the Third Culture Show, 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. You check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we are not at the Boston Public Library. We apologize, but we will be speaking right here in Brighton with the former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, about the New York mayor's race. We're also going to be talking to NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey, Boston Medical Center, Dr. Katherine Barnett. Oops, I'm really goofing this up. Sorry. Gergen Barnett, and psychologist Lisa Fonts on Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We'll check in with the Wagner Foundation in Cambridge. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Mira Donaldson, Brad Lewis ran our YouTube stream today. Our engineer is John Nick Quah Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Baloney. The Culture Show is right after us. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Something?
No, I'll tell you tomorrow. See ya. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Life is a ball with Lind.
What's trending?